Good morning and welcome to the fifth meeting of the Rural Affairs and Islands Committee in 2026. Just to let everyone know that Emma Roddick and Rhoda Grant will be attending remotely this morning. As usual, before we begin, can we ensure that all electronic devices are switched to silent? This morning we will be considering the Crofting and Scottish Land Court Bill at Stage 2. And I welcome to the meeting Jim Fairley, the Minister for Agriculture and Connectivity, who is supported by the Scottish Government officials. Officials seated at the table are here to support the Minister, but are not permitted to speak in the debate on amendments. As we have two members participating remotely, I will briefly explain the procedure for hybrid Stage 2. If at any stage we lose connection, we will suspend the proceedings. Emma and Rhoda's cameras will be kept on at all times, and remote members should raise their hands at the appropriate moment for each vote. So, I call Amendment 1 in the name of Alistair Allen, grouped with amendments as shown in the groupings. Alistair Allen to move Amendment 1 and speak to all amendments in the group.
Thank you, Convener. I'm going to speak to Amendments 1 and 24. Amendment 1 makes it clear that enforcing statutory duties is added to the general functions of the Commission. Applying criminal rather than civil sanctions for failing to comply with, say, the return of an annual notice does seem to me very heavy-handed. However, it is vital that the Crofting Commission has the necessary enforcement powers to ensure that crofters meet certain requirements. So a more practical civil system of monetary penalties would enable the Commission to respond proportionately and effectively to non-compliance. Amendment 24 will give Ministers a regulation-making power to establish a civil monetary penalties regime for non-compliance with specific duties. This power enables Ministers by regulation to confer on the Commission the ability to impose and collect monetary penalties and to repeal or adjust existing criminal offences relating to those duties. The regulation-making power is subject to a statutory consultation requirement, which would allow those likely to be affected by any change an opportunity to express their views and to ensure appropriate parliamentary scrutiny. So I would urge members to support my amendments in this group, and I move Amendment 1.
Dr Allen, I now call Rhoda Grant to speak to Amendment 166 and other amendments in the group.
Thank you, Convener. I want to speak to Amendment 166, 173, 174, 175, 198 and 190. Too often we hear about people using their croft house as a holiday let or a second home, and I think that's a theme that runs through a lot of the amendments to this bill, because we have to find ways of making sure that crofts are used for the purpose intended. At this moment, many so-called crofters are not in fact crofters. They're people who bought a house and some land. And crofting is fundamentally different in that the land must be put to agricultural use. Over the years, diversification has infringed on that, and often for very good reasons, because very few crofters make a living out of the land on their croft. So Amendment 166 tightens up the ordinary resident criteria to ensure that crofters' sole or main residence as opposed to an ordinary resident. Hopefully this definition will make it easier for the Commission to identify those who are not ordinarily resident on the croft. Amendment 173 allows Scottish ministers or any Scottish Government department, such as the Rural Payments and Inspection Division, to be able to report breaches in the residence criteria to the Crofting Commission, who must then instigate an investigation. Amendment 174 enables the person from the same township who is reporting a breach to request that they remain anonymous and to have the Crofting Commission keep their details anonymised. If they live in the same township, it could really cause tensions and splits if their name became known. Amendment 175 limits the scope for people making vexatious complaints and allows the Commission to take that into account before proceeding to investigate. Amendment 189 is really a probing amendment. Currently, there is the ability to apply for consent to be absent, and there are legitimate times when someone would require to be absent from the croft for short-term working commitments, for caring responsibilities, family responsibilities. However, anecdotal information suggests that this is being misused and people are using it to be permanently absent. And I'm keen to work with the Minister and Bill team maybe to explore how we stop the abuse of the ability to have consent to be absent without putting people's home and livelihood at risk should difficult circumstances occur. Amendment 196 to deal with the issue where somebody is either buying a croft or an assignation, that they need to be aware of the duties they're taking on. All too often people believe a croft is a house. It's not. Where there is a house attached to the croft, that is a croft house. However, you cannot have a croft house without it being attached to croft land. And it is the land to which the obligations are attached. Crofts are changing hands for huge amounts of money, and I don't believe that would happen in the way it is currently if people understood what they're taking on. This amendment proposes a way in which this could happen. However, I'm open to discussion around better ways of doing this. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you, Ms Grant. I now call Ariane Burgess to speak to Amendment 133 and other amendments in the group.
Thank you, Convener. I'm going to initially speak to Amendments 133, 134, 35 and 36 relating to Section 3, reporting breaches of duty. During the committee session that we held on the bill, we heard concerns about the reporting of breaches of duty. In light of this, I worked with Community Land Scotland on Amendments 133 to 136. We feel that a duty on the Commission to only investigate possible breaches of duty on crofts that have been reported by those that come from the same township, as the bill currently states, won't lead to meaningful change. This is for the simple reason that crofters and people in any other walk of life are unlikely to report their neighbours for breaches of duty. Amendment 134, and that's something that came through, was reflected in the discussions during the evidence sessions. Amendment 134 would rectify this by using the word parish instead of township. A parish encompasses a larger area, albeit one in which inhabitants are likely to know almost every blade of grass within that zone. And this would allow a wider community to report suspected breaches of duty on a nearby croft, taking that burden off the shoulders of nearby neighbours and sharing amongst that wider community. Likewise, as we've set out in Amendments 133 and 35, we feel it's important that prospective crofters, local community councils and government agencies have the power to report breaches. This further takes pressure off the community, who understandably may wish to protect relationships and avoid conflict. Amendment 136 is consequential to Amendments 133 to 135. Speaking in relation to this section, to Rhoda Grant's Amendment 173, it offers a more limited version of what I've set out in 133 to 135, only adding the government to the list of those who can report a breach. Meanwhile, her Amendment 174, which would allow complainants to remain anonymous, well, while I understand the intent behind this amendment, I am a little bit concerned that it restricts the airing of issues that, if it's something about moving to a culture of the confidence to discuss openly and with support the issues that are faced in a community, and that this could potentially help the crofting communities to move to a better way of living together. Therefore, I'm not minded to support 175, although I do support 166 in the name of Rhoda Grant, and I agree that tighter language is needed to ensure we don't have crofters living well away from their crofts and crofting communities. Keeping crofting communities in place is key to halting rural depopulation and creating a thriving rural community. So this amendment has my support. Moving on to Amendment 137 related to Section 4. Common grazings account for more than 550,000 hectares of land in crofting tenure. To ensure their proper management and administration, committees are encouraged to adopt grazing committees are encouraged to adopt appropriate regulations. Where someone is in breach of those grazing regulations, it's important that the Crofting Commission has the necessary controls to encourage compliance. And this amendment will bring the treatment of such breaches in line with a suspected breach of duty when the Commission is considering whether to process a regulatory application or to decline to do anything. Thank you.
Thank you. I call the Minister to speak to Amendment 11 and other amendments in the group. Minister.
Thank you very much, Convener. I am very happy to support Alistair Allen's Amendments 1 and 24. Enforcing compliance with statutory duties is one of the Commission's most important functions, and it is right that it is stated explicitly in the legislation. It's also much more appropriate and much more practical for enforcement to be done by means of a civil fine rather than criminal offences. However, I cannot support Rhoda Grant's Amendment 166. At the Crofton Commission's evidence session to the committee, its chair, Andrew Thinn, explained that the Commission was modernising its policy plan, which will be significantly more detailed and will make it crystal clear what being ordinarily resident means and what evidence for that will look like. That will allow the Commission to undertake evidence-based residency checks, and I would ask that we trust the regulators to regulate at this moment in time. I'm also unable to support Ariane Burgess's amendments 133, 135 and 136, or Rhoda Grant's 173. If we extend the list to those who can report breaches and must be investigated, that has the potential to create a lot of additional work for the Commission, because it will be obliged to investigate every report that it receives regardless of the strength of the evidence provided. And one of the things that we're trying to do is get the Commission to actually investigate breaches. So the Government and the Commission's view is that the significant expansions already in place in the bill are striking the right balance. So we do not want to diminish the overall effectiveness of the Commission regulation by drawing this too widely. And given people who may have no connection to the township such a right, we should also bear in mind the existing roles of government officials and community councillors who have their own key roles to play in these communities. And that goes to the point that Rhoda Grant was mentioning earlier on about RPID officers. They also live in these communities. So we know from the Commission's evidence session that they can and do consider some reported breaches of duty from outside those mentioned in legislation. But that decision is based on the strength of the evidence that is provided. Therefore, no one person or organisation is prevented from reporting a suspected breach of duty, but there has to be evidence behind it. So for similar reasons, I can't support Ariane Burgess's Amendment 134, which expands the geographical extent of those with the right to report a suspected breach and thereby require the Commission to investigate. Several parishes in the Highlands and Islands have a considerable extent, and I would again point out there is nothing preventing anyone from a wider parish reporting a suspected breach of duty. Whether the Commission then chooses to investigate that report will be based on the strength of evidence, and this is a far more efficient use of the Commission's resources. So I'd urge the committee to reject 166, 133, 135, 136, 173 and 134. I'd also urge the committee to reject Amendment 174. A system of anonymous reporting would be problematic for several reasons. For one thing, anonymity can be hard to maintain in practice, and if anonymity were maintained, the effect that can then potentially have in the community can be devastating. If a person is complained about, they may then harbour suspicion about all of the neighbours or wrongly assume which one of them it was. And thirdly, as the amendment accepts, sometimes a request for anonymity can be overturned by some other rule of law. So the Commission is already entitled to consider whether a report is in terms of Amendment 175, the Commission is already entitled to consider whether a report of a suspected breach is frivolous or vexatious, and considering each case on its merits, which could already include whether it comes from someone whose reports have been considered frivolous or vexatious in the past, will continue to be required. So I would not support Amendment 175. Turning now to 8 amendments in my own name, that's 11, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 and 20. Section 4 of the bill replaces provision in sections 26C and 26D of the 1993 Act to streamline the process for the giving of notices and undertaking relating to enforcement duties. These amendments further simplify the procedure to be followed by the Commission in instances where a crofter or owner-occupier crofter is issued with a notice suspecting them to be in breach and the period set out in that notice expires where no undertaking has been given. Instead of having separate sections setting out the procedure in which the representations are made or not made on time and the consequences that are flowing from that, Section 26DB is omitted, with some aspects being imported into Section 26D. This then provides a clear steer to the Commission about what they may do in relation to a person who engages with the enforcement process, as well as those who don't engage properly or don't engage at all. So in deciding whether the duty is being complied with, the Commission may treat a nil return by the person as an acceptance that they are not complying with their duties. The Commission will still have to consider any representations made on time and may take account of any late representations. Where the Commission decide the duty is not being complied with, amendments provide that their obligations to give the person a further opportunity to give an undertaking before they take enforcement action will only apply in cases where the person has actually engaged with the process properly. That is in cases where the Commission receive representation from them on time. In all other cases, the Commission can exercise discretion in deciding whether or not to offer such a further opportunity. The new Section 26DA then follows the procedures to be followed if an undertaking is given, whether in response to an initial or further notice. Moving on to Amendment 13, this amendment provides that where the Commission have suspected breach of duty notice and then choose to decline to do anything with a regularity application that person has an interest in, they must then notify the applicant of their decision. Amendment 21 applies the standard timescales and grounds of appeal to any appeals against the decision of the Commission to decline to do anything with an application. In regard to Amendment 22, Section 5 of the Bill inserts a new Section 29BA into the 1993 Act, giving the Commission powers to vary or revoke consent for a sublet or a short lease, where they consider that the subtenant or the short leaseholder is not fulfilling the Croftian duties or is otherwise breaching a condition of let. This amendment provides that when the Commission makes an order under that section, their decision will be appealable to the Land Court. I would ask the Committee support Ariane Burgess's Amendment 137. That amendment enables the Commission to treat a breach of grazings regulations in the same manner as it treats a suspected breach of duty when considering whether to process a regulatory application or decline to do anything. Oversight of common grazings is an important regulatory function of the Commission, and there is the same need for sanctions as we have recognised in regard to enforcement of crofting duties. I can't support Rhoda Grant's Amendment 189, which would remove the right for a crofter or owner-occupier to apply to the Commission for consent to be absent from their croft. The consequence of this amendment would be that the crofter who may have to leave their croft, for example, for work or health reasons, would not be able to advise the Commission in advance. They would leave and have to wait and see if someone decides to report them, and if reported, they would not be at home to respond to the Commission's suspected duty suspected breach of duty letter. And all of that is going to cause unnecessary stress and uncertainty, so it's far better to have a system that encourages people to be upfront about their current position and not just wait and see if they get caught or be informed on by a neighbour. So I'd urge the Committee to reject this amendment. I also can't support Rhoda Grant's Amendment 190. One of the aims of this bill is to simplify the legislation and make crofting regulation less onerous for crofters and the Commission. This amendment brings yet more regulation into the system and will have a resource impact on the Commission.
Minister, I beg your pardon for interrupting. Just to let you know that the remote member has indicated to make an intervention, just in case you missed that. Are you willing to take an intervention?
If she allows me to finish this point, I'll let her come back in then. My apologies, I wasn't seeing the screen, so thank you for letting me know. So allow me to finish the point and then I'll bring Rhoda Grant in. I agree that we need to raise awareness of the crofting duties, and that is why I welcome the action being taken by the Crofting Commission to issue guidance to solicitors and agents on croft sales, because the guidance is designed to ensure that those acting for the sale of a croft or a croft tenancy are fully aware of the legal duties and obligations that come with owning a croft. And I'm happy to take the intervention from Rhoda Grant.
Rhoda Grant.
Thank you. I was looking just to ask about Amendment 189, to ask whether the Minister would be willing to have some discussions ahead of Stage 3 on this. I know that this amendment isn't the finished article by any stretch, but there is an issue about people being absent and not really being absent, using it as a way of kind of abandonment. But if we could tighten up the rules around that, I think it would make it better. I'm not suggesting that people should go and wait to be reported, but the circumstances in which they can maybe leave their croft for a short period of time should be maybe tightened up.
More than happy to have a discussion. And I should probably say at this point, there are a lot of things that we actually agree with in principle throughout this bill, but this bill is not the place to make these changes. So I'm more than happy to have the discussion on a lot of the things that we're going to discuss as we're going through. So just because I'm saying we can't support this amendment at this point doesn't necessarily mean to say that there can't be further discussion had. So more than happy to do that. We've dealt with Amendment 190, and we've talked about the work that the Crofting Commission are doing, because the advice that they are outlining to estate agents, etc., is to outline the key responsibilities of a crofter, and that includes the legal duties that they need to be ordinarily resident or on or near the croft to make that purposeful use of it. It also highlights the offence of failing to return their annual notice, which requires crofters to confirm that they're complying with their duties. I have been encouraged by the work that has already been done by the Commission, and I would urge the committee not to support this amendment on that basis. I would ask the committee to support Tim Eagle's Amendment 155, as it brings clarity to the material in Section 40A of the 1993 Act and removes any potential for confusion. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you. Tim Eagle to speak to Amendment 155 and other amendments in the group.
Thank you very much, Convener. So just to remind everybody of my register of interests before I start, my Amendment 155 simply changes the section heading of Section 40A of the 1993 Act to avoid any possible confusion between a crofting-specific notice given under that section and either the agricultural census or the national census, which occurs every 10 years. And here I would like to thank the Minister for working with me on the drafting of this amendment. Thank you.
Any other members? No. Alistair Allen to wind up and press or withdraw Amendment 1.
Nothing further to add other than to press.
Thank you. The question is that Amendment 1 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are all agreed. I call Amendment 166, the name of Rhoda Grant, already debated with Amendment 1. Rhoda Grant to move or not move?
Not moved.
Not moved. The members indicated not to move. In that case, will not be considered. I call Amendment 167 in the name of Tim Eagle, grouped with amendments as shown in the groupings. And I point out that if Amendment 132 is agreed to, I cannot call Amendment 6 due to preemption. And if Amendment 142 is agreed to, I cannot call Amendment 143, 144 and 145 due to preemption. Tim Eagle to move Amendment 167 and speak to all amendments in the group.
Thank you, Convener. So my Amendment 167 adds to the list of what constitutes misuse of a croft. The bill currently outlines a list of what constitutes misuse if the crofters fail to do something. It works alongside Amendment 169. The Amendment 169 prevents a crofter from putting the croft to environmental use unless the crofter is present on the land and the land is being used for active land management. This reflects concerns that were raised at the committee stage about extending the use of crofts for environmental purposes. It addresses concerns that environmental purposes would allow absent or neglected crofters to neglect their crofts. It also addresses concerns over the Commission's enforcement powers and abilities. Moving on to my Amendment 170, as currently drafted, the bill outlines some examples of what environmental use may include. It includes activities such as peatland restoration and habitat creation. My Amendment 170 seeks to add to the bill that environmental use does not include the generation, transmission or storage of renewable energy or for the purpose of rewilding. This follows arguments I have repeatedly raised that food-producing land should not be overtaken by any renewables infrastructure. This is a constant problem in our rural communities, where communities and the needs of locals are often ignored. It also reflects concerns that the definition of environmental use is vague. We hope to ensure that we establish what it definitely does not mean to ensure the very best possible drafting, rather than a vague term which could be interpreted in various ways. Can I thank the Minister for working with me on Amendments 143 onwards in this group, which seek to make adjustments to Section 18 on the use of common grazings for forestry or environmental purposes for a variety of reasons. Amendments 143, 144 and 145 remove certain constraints on the rights of landowners to refuse consent on proposals put forward by a Grazings Committee. The owner will now be able to refuse consent if they consider the proposal detrimental rather than it having to be substantially detrimental to the management of the estate, or if they consider it would cause them hardship rather than undue hardship, or would lessen rather than significantly lessen the amenity of the land. The requirement for a high degree of detriment, hardship or loss of amenity will not be necessarily because the bill gives the final say on any application to the Commission rather than the landowner. The constraints, if they were retained, would in effect prevent the owner from expressing their views freely and fully. Amendment 147 allows an owner 8 weeks rather than 6 to state if they wish to refuse consent to a Grazings Committee application for a forestry or environmental use of the common grazings. Any refusal is not the last word, however, as the Commission can overrule it. Amendment 149 removes a duplication from the legislation. The requirement for a Commission determination to be entered in the Register of Crofts is already provided in Section 58A12 of the 1993 Act and does not need to be repeated in the new Section 50ZA. Amendments 150 and 153 provide that where the Commission consents to a Grazing Committee's proposal to use the grazings for forestry, an environmental purpose or any other novel purpose, the consent expires if the project is not commenced within 5 years rather than 7. And finally, in this group, my Amendment 153 also inserts text into Section 50B, use of common grazings for other purposes, which are equivalent to words already in the existing Section 50 and will be retained in the new Section 50ZA, use of common grazings for forestry or environmental purposes. These provide that once consent is given by the Commission, the consent takes effect when it is entered into the Register of Crofts, and the agreement is binding on successors to the owner's interest. Briefly, I'll turn to others in the group. I will await, in terms of Rhoda Grant's Amendments 4 and 5, I will await the members' explanation, but from my reading, I believe that Rhoda Grant's Amendments 4 and 5 are along similar lines to mine to ensure that active management, environmental use, and as such, I would be content to support them. And similarly to Rhoda Grant's Amendments 7 and the Minister's Amendment 76. I'll listen happily to Ariane Burgess's Amendment 132. However, at the moment, I'm not convinced I can support that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Eagle. Can I just check that you moved Amendment 167?
If I didn't, I do now.
Thank you very much, Mr Eagle. I now call Rhoda Grant to speak to Amendment 3 and other amendments in the group.
Thank you, Convener. I want to speak to Amendment 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 197, 202 and 203. The stakeholders, while welcoming the ability to put a croft to environmental use, expressed concerns that this might be a shortcut to abandonment, and therefore what could be deemed as environmental use has to be better laid out. The purpose of these amendments is to strengthen the definition of environmental use to reflect a more proactive and purposeful approach to environmental use. Amendment 3 adds the exception into Section 1. Amendment 4 makes a parallel change to the existing definition of purposeful use, bringing it in line with the new definition of environmental use in terms of active management of land. Amendment 5 requires the crofter to actively manage their land with the intention to provide environmental benefit. And Amendment 6 ensures that the environmental use must not adversely affect the croft. Amendment 7 excludes energy generation, transmission and storage from being treated as environmental use. This doesn't prohibit energy generation on a croft, but it does prohibit it from being termed environmental use. For instance, you could not cover your croft in solar panels and say it has been put to environmental use, but you could have solar panels on your croft as part of the normal working of your croft to generate electricity for a barn or the like. Amendment 8, the bill gives regulation powers to ministers to adapt a list of purposes considered to be environmental uses. Amendment 8 allows them to specifically exclude items from the list. Amendments 3 and 10 ensure that crofters and owner-occupier crofters are not treated as breaching the standards of good agriculture and environmental condition if an environmental or purposeful use is incompatible with the requirement under Section 5B and 19C of the Crofters Scotland Act 1993. Amendment 197 removes part of the bill that gives no role for the Crofton Commission where the landowner grants unconditional consent to environmental use. It allows the Commission to determine all application for environmental use. Amendments 102 and 103 refer to carbon credits. Crofter is entitled to take trees and peat on their croft of the common grazing, and therefore currently they are entitled to any financial gains For this, some landlords are now seeking to take the carbon credits that pertain to the peat and forestry on the croft or common grazing. This is not only wrong, it's preventing crofters from working to ensure they maximise the environmental benefits of their croft. And we heard about this when scrutinising the climate change plan. Amendment 102 ensures that if a crofter or grazings committee carry out peatland restoration or forestry, that they alone are entitled to the carbon credits emanating from their work. Amendment 103 stops the landlord resuming the croft or common grazing once that work has been carried out in order to keep to themselves the carbon credits emanating from that work. This, of course, does not interfere with a landlord or grazings committee entering into a joint venture to carry out such work if they wish to. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you. I now call Beatrice Wishart to speak to Amendment 168 and other amendments in the group.
Thanks, Convener. Amendment 168 would allow a crofter to fulfil their duties under Section 5C2 with the assistance of family or hired labour. The current law lacks certainty around the involvement of other family members or hired labour, following the removal of the explicit wording in this regard from Schedule 2 of the Crofters Scotland Act 1993. The Law Society of Scotland suggests this amendment would provide the certainty by inserting this language into Schedule 2. Thank you.
I call Ariane Burgess to speak to Amendment 132 and other amendments in the group.
Thanks, Convener. It was clear during committee discussions of this bill that there's a degree of dissatisfaction in the way Section 1 defined environmental use, or kind of confusion. Given the importance of putting land to environmental use, if Scotland is to tackle the climate and biodiversity crisis, I felt it was important to address these concerns and put forward a watertight definition of the term. Amendment 132, which was drafted in collaboration with Community Land Scotland, underlines that environmental use has to be intentionally designed and systematically managed. It also stipulates that this use must not be detrimental to the croft and must not undermine public interest. This definition gives crofters and the Crofting Commission ample room to interpret environmental use as they see fit, whilst also providing guardrails to ensure that this kind of use has to have a thought process, planning and implementation measures, as well as a clear aim in order to fit in with crofter duties. I appreciate that Amendments 4, 5 and 6 in the name of Rhoda Grant make that stipulation, the stipulation that environmental use must involve active management, and this is certainly tighter than the original bill's definition, but crucially it doesn't require the level of design and planning I believe are important in this instance. As a Scottish Green, I want to see environmental usage that is properly executed and meaningful, especially in the face of the climate and nature crisis. The version proposed by my amendment is stronger and would enable crofters and the Crofting Commission to operate with absolute certainty when it comes to environmental use. Likewise, I'm concerned that Amendments 167 and 169 in the name of Tim Eagle, which are alternatives to my amendments and those of Rhoda Grant, contain a vagueness that could operate as a backdoor to preventing environmental use. His Amendment 170 stipulates that environmental use doesn't include energy generation, transmission or storage, which I agree with, but the last line, which says that rewilding is also out of bounds for environmental use, could make it difficult for crofters to actually carry out duties under Chapter 1, subsection 3 of the bill. Returning to my other amendments, 142, 146, 148, 196, 151, 152 and 198 in section related to Section 18 common grazings used for environmental purposes, this bill takes a welcome step towards enabling crofters to use the land they manage for environmental purposes. But there are issues with Section 18 that need addressing if crofters who are part of common grazings are to be able to operate with confidence. For example, landowners have too much power to stymie environmental initiatives because the language used in the bill is too loose. With support from Community Land Scotland and the Scottish Crofting Federation, I've proposed ways of bringing landowner rights into balance with those of crofters. Amendment 142 would only allow landowners to refuse consent for environmental initiatives if they would be detrimental to the community or the public interest. Now, this still gives landowners a power to say no and make a reasonable case for doing so. I've heard that landowners are using their existing powers of refusal to block environmental initiatives or accept them only if crofters accept highly unfavourable terms. This is preventing good climate and nature-friendly work from taking place and is damaging our nation's progress towards legally binding targets. Crofting Commission Chair Andrew Thinn told us during our committee evidence sessions with the Commission on this bill, a large chunk of our land in our country is being used suboptimally and is suboptimally productive, which isn't sensible. And he called on MSPs to rethink existing systems of land use and management so that they perform environmental goods where appropriate. Amendment 142 drives that change, and it puts the needs of our nation above those of individual landowners. If Amendment 142 falls, I'd like to provide a bit of clarity around when an intended resumption can take place. Amendment 146 states that a resumption would have to be for a reasonable purpose, and that would benefit crofters, local communities and the public interest. This would mean landowners cannot claim that they will carry out a resumption at some obscure point in the future, as the current wording allows. It also ensures that if they are genuinely intending to go through with a resumption, it will be of benefit to others. Again, landowners would have ample power to say no, but this alternative to Amendment 142 at least removes some of the ambiguities contained in the bill as it was introduced. We must also consider how to clear up uncertainties around carbon rights and how these are shared between crofters and landlords. Now, this has been an ongoing conversation since the beginning of the session, since I've attended the Crofting CPG. It would be unacceptable for crofters to put all the work into environmental use only for the landowner to collect the financial benefit of that work. Amendment 148 states that revenues from carbon and ecosystem services would belong to the active user of a common grazing. As a Scottish Green, I fundamentally don't agree with the idea of natural capital markets, but they are here, and so we need to actually address address justice and fairness. Amendment 196 offers a slightly different path to the same goal by copying the same language from Section 50 to subsection 6 into Section 50, subsection 7. And this would mean crofters would receive the economic benefit that comes with restoring peatland ecosystems, improving water management, or preserving and enhancing the environment in another way. Meanwhile, Amendment 198 offers another way into this reform by entitling the Grazings Committees to financial benefits arising out of active environmental use. Passive landowners should not be allowed to extract wealth that's been generated by active crofting, wealth that would support rural communities. It's a hangover of the archaic system we lived under in Scotland for far too long. One that benefits the few at the expense of many, and I would strongly encourage this government to commit to wider work on this issue, perhaps through a carbon rights bill that we touched on during discussions prior to this session. My other amendments in this grouping 151 and 152 are crucial to encouraging crofters to adopt environmental practices or use common grazings for forestry. This would be particularly in the case if members do not vote for Amendments 148, 196 and 198. 151 would require ministers to ensure that agricultural support payments and other public grants are set up to also support environmental initiatives or forestry on common grazings. We need to use the levers of state to encourage positive behaviour, all the more so if, as the bill currently has it, there's going to be little other incentive to do so. Amendment 152 would require ministers to set up an advisory capacity for grazings committees on the use of common grazings for forestry or environmental purposes. I believe this is particularly key given the use of land for these purposes is still relatively novel. This advisory function would help to build expertise and ensure that crofters can get the best out of land when it comes to environmental uses. As I said at the start, this bill makes a genuinely positive step forward when it comes to opening the doors to environmental use on crofting land, and these amendments are intended to build on that positive foundation by supporting crofters to walk through that door.
Thank you. Minister to speak to Amendment 76 and other amendments in the group.
Thank you very much, Convener. First of all, I would urge the committee to support Tim Eagle's amendments 143, 144, 145, 147, 149, 150 and 153. As you know, the bill will give the Commission rather than the landowner the final say, and I think that's a really important point in this section. is that it's the Commission, rather than the landowner, that will have the final say on Grazing Committee's proposals to use the grazings for forestry or environmental purposes. It follows that some of the previous constraints on how the landowner could oppose such proposals are no longer appropriate. And I particularly commend Tim Eagle's Amendment 150, which reduces the time limit to commence an approved project from 7 years to 5. It's in no one's interest for the land to be tied up longer than is necessary when planned activities are not happening. However, Tim Eagle's Amendments 167, 169 and 170 cover the same ground in Rhoda Grant's amendments as does Ariane Burgess's 132. Now, I support Rhoda Grant's version, so I'd ask Tim and Ariane not to press theirs. I support Rhoda Grant's Amendments 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 10, because these make sound changes to the definition of environmental use in line with the evidence that we heard at stage 1. I also support Rhoda Grant's Amendment 197. It seems to me that if the Grazings Committee and the landowner are in agreement about the proposal, it is still appropriate that the Commission have a role to play in the final decision. But I cannot support Rhoda's Amendment 202 or 203 because they refer to carbon units and we have no regulations have yet been made under the Climate Change Scotland Act 2009 to define what those carbon units are or to establish any system of registering, holding or transferring them. So there's a lot of detailed work needs to be done to set up such a carbon credit scheme, and it is far too early to set out in legislation how any financial benefit from a scheme should be shared between landlords and tenants. That being said, there is nothing to stop crofters and landlords entering into...
Beg your pardon, sorry.
That's okay. We're just going to have to do...
We'll have an intervention. I got caught out as well, so it's difficult keeping an eye on the screen as well.
Yeah. I'll finish the point that I'm making. There is nothing to stop crofters and landlords entering into joint ventures which shall develop and secure shared solutions that benefit all the parties that are participating. And I will take Rhoda Grant's intervention. And I apologise, we're just going to have to do it this way.
No problem. I'm really concerned about this because it is a blocker on crofters carrying out environmental work because the landowner can then take the benefit. And I know of cases where the landowners and crofters can't reach agreement. It seems to me that we could find, and I'm asking if the Minister is willing, a way of ensuring that if a crofter or a grazings committee take action to create environmental benefit, the landowner then cannot claim any of the income or wealth generated from that work. We could get round the issue of defining carbon credits, but we could surely find a way of making sure that the work of the crofter or grazings committee means that they get the value from that work.
As I said in the previous section, I'm more than happy to meet with Rhoda Grant to discuss this further. But my concern right now is that we do not have a fixed market or a system to actually define what this is. But we need to have those conversations, so I'm more than happy to continue to have those chats after this session. Absolutely.
Rhoda Grant, I share the same concerns, and I haven't referred to carbon markets specifically. I'd appreciate being part of that conversation because I think it is really important that the effort on the ground by the crofters is something that stays. And as I said in my speaking time, that we need to reward the effort that people on the ground are putting in rather than and get away from this extracting of wealth and keep it in the community.
It's a point that Alistair Allen has also raised in the past, so I am more than happy to continue those discussions to make sure that we try to find the solutions. I'm not sure that we can find them in this bill, but it's definitely something we can talk about how we're going to go forward. So turning to Amendment 168, unfortunately I can't support Beatrice Wishart's amendment. It was raised in our 2024 consultation, and although the majority supported it, others pointed out that it is already widely recognised that crofters can be supported by family members and hired labour in working the croft, so I don't think it's a problem that needs to be fixed. The fear is that this well-meaning amendment could just encourage more informal lending of crofts, which our crofting communities, I think, would see as a backward step. As far as Ariane Burgess's amendments are concerned, I can't support any of them in this group. I've already mentioned why I support Tim Eagle's amendments. That will give grazing owners the ability to express their support or opposition for a Crofter-led proposal freely and fully before the Commission makes the final decision. And Ariane Burgess amendments 142 and 146 run counter to that position. 148, 196 and 198 would attempt to intervene in the balance of carbon rights between grazing and shareholders and landowners. I've set out my reasons as to why we shouldn't seek to do that at this stage. Amendment 152 would require ministers to make provision for advising grazing committees on forestry and environmental use of grazing. And I agree with the sentiment, but any future government should be free to decide whether and how to add what is already available from, amongst other things, the Commission, Farm Advisory Service and private land agents. So, turning to my own amendments, I have listened to the debate at stage 1 and I agree that energy generation, transmission or storage should count as an other use of common grazings rather than an environmental use. So Amendment 76 clarifies that point, and Amendment 77 would give ministers power to make further clarifications by regulations should that be necessary. And I move Amendment 76.
Thank you, Minister. Tim Eagle to wind up and press or withdraw Amendment 167.
Nothing further to add, and I won't press 167.
Thank you. The member has indicated he's not wishing to press. No other member has indicated they wish to do so. So we'll now continue. I call Amendment 2 in the name of the Minister, a group with amendments shown as shown in the groupings. Excuse me. Minister, to move Amendment 2 and speak to all amendments in the group.
Amendment 2, yeah. Thank you very much, Convener. Bear with me, I'll just catch my page. Amendments 2, 9, 23, 74, 106, 110, 111, 115, 120, 121, 125, 128 and 130 can accurately be characterised as minor amendments correcting technical issues in the bill, such as typographical or referencing errors. I'll run through these as quickly as I can, Convener. Amendment 100 and 101 limit the Government's and the Commission's powers to make provision about the giving of public notification and specifying the form and content of public notices in relation to the 2010 Act to provision under Section 12(8) of that Act only. This is because Section 12(8) is the only public notice requirement in the entire 2010 Act, so the broader reference is not appropriate. Amendment 127 cancels an insertion that the bill was going to make to Section 58A4B of the 1993 Act to confirm that this subsection applies to any non-crofters who hold shares in the common grazings. This insertion is now considered not to be needed because Section 4710 of the 1993 Act already makes that provision. Amendment 131 is a consequential change and updates the Tribunals Scotland Act 2014 to remove the Lands Tribunal from Scotland from the list of tribunals which may be transferred into the Scottish tribunals. The jurisdiction and functions of the Lands Tribunal will transfer to the Scottish Land Court under Section 36 of this bill, and this amendment ensures that the statute book accurately reflects the tribunal landscape. I invite members to agree to this amendment, and I move Amendment 2.
Thank you. Any other members? No. Minister, to wind up.
Nothing further to add. And
the question is that Amendment 2 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are all agreed. I call Amendment 3 in the name of Rhoda Grant, already debated with Amendment 167. Rhoda Grant, to move or not move?
Moved.
And the question is that Amendment 3 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are all agreed. I call Amendment 168 in the name of Beatrice Wishart, already debated with Amendment 167. Beatrice Wishart, to move or not move?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 168 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? No. We are not agreed. There will be division. Those members wishing to support the amendment, please raise your hand now. Those members opposed? Those members wishing to abstain? And the result of the vote is 5 for, 4 against. The amendment has therefore been agreed. I call Amendment 169 in the name of Tim Eagle, already debated with Amendment 167. Tim Eagle, to move or not move? That has not been moved, so will not be considered. I call Amendment 4 in the name of Rhoda Grant, already debated with Amendment 167. Rhoda Grant, to move or not move?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 4 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are all agreed. I call Amendment 5 in the name of Rhoda Grant, already debated with Amendment 167. Rhoda Grant, to move or not move?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 5 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are all agreed. I call Amendment 132 in the name of Ariane Burgess, already debated with Amendment 167. And I remind members that if Amendment 132 is agreed to, I cannot call Amendment 6 due to preemption. Ariane Burgess, to move or not move?
Not move.
That has not been moved, so will not be considered. I call Amendment 6 in the name of Rhoda Grant, already debated with Amendment 167. Rhoda Grant, to move or not move?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 6 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are all agreed. I call Amendment 7 in the name of Rhoda Grant, already debated with Amendment 167. Rhoda Grant, to move or not move?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 7 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are all agreed. I call Amendment 170 in the name of Tim Eagle, already debated with Amendment 167. Tim Eagle, to move or not move?
Moved.
That has not been moved, so it will not be considered. I call Amendment 8 in the name of Rhoda Grant, already debated with Amendment 167. Rhoda Grant, to move or not move?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 8 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Are we all? We're not agreed. There will be a division. Those supporting the amendment, please raise your hand now. Those members opposed? Those members wishing to abstain? And the result of the vote is 8 for, no, nothing against, and 1 abstention. The amendment has therefore been agreed. I call Amendment 9 in the name of the Minister, already debated with Amendment 2. Minister, to move formally.
Moved, Convener.
Thank you. And the question is that Amendment 9 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are all agreed. I call Amendment 10 in the name of Rhoda Grant, already debated with Amendment 167. Rhoda Grant, to move or not move?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 10 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are all agreed. The question is that Section 1 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are all agreed. I now call Amendment 171 in the name of Edward Mountain, grouped with Amendments 172, 139, 78, 79 and 210. Edward Mountain, to move Amendment 171 and speak to all amendments in the group.
Thank you very much, Convener. And I'd just like to remind members of my register of interest that I have a share in a family farm in Morayshire. There is no crofting involved in it. The amendments 171 and 172 came about because of my experience and the experience of my constituents regarding the crofting commission and the amount of time it took to get a response. I've just put on the record that the longest I have waited for a response from the commission is 14.5 months, which I find unacceptable. So the bill, as it stands at the moment, Convener, removes the timescales for the Commission's decisions, which could be seen as a negative step for those who interact with the Commission, particularly as the Commission have those who interact with the particularly there are quite tight timescales placed upon crofters and landlords with serious consequences for failure to meet them. However, I accept that as it stands presently, there are no consequences, as I found out, for the Commission in failing to meet their stated timescales. The value in statute is therefore limited. The consultation prior to the bill referred to a customer service standard document to be produced, and there is no requirement within the bill for any publication timescale. Amendment 172 places that intention on a statutory footing to provide some assurances that a standard will be produced against which the Commission's performance can be measured. I do not think it adds to any administrative burden on the Commission. It simply provides a statutory commitment to do something which is planned to be done anyway. Therefore, Amendment 172 offers a practical alternative by ensuring the Commission publishes a set of meaningful standards so that crofters and landlords have clear expectations how long the process will last when they interact with the Commission. Amendment 171 is consequential to 172. Amendment 210, Convener, would reverse the removal of the requirement to have somebody who can represent the interests of the landlords on the Commission. I heard what the Minister said at stage 1 about the need for flexibility, and I have some sympathy with that. However, with a growing diversity of types of crofting owners, including communities, I feel it would be a retrograde step for the legislation to imply that their interests may not always be represented. The Commission was changed, and I remember the change from the Crofters Commission to the Crofting Commission. for a reason, and I believe it should continue to serve the wider crofting community and not alienate an important part of it. I think it's clear that landlords and owners of common grazing have an increasingly important part, Convener, and a valuable role to play in investing in crofting counties and helping to generate shared benefits for crofting communities. To marginalise them in this way, therefore, to me is short-sighted. And just to confirm, Convener, I move Amendment 171.
I call Ariane Burgess to speak to Amendment 139 and other amendments in the group.
Thanks, Convener. It's already been reflected in committee sessions that the market in crofts is running too hot for new entrants, and this is threatening the future of crofting and needs to be dealt with. People who want to be active on a croft by managing the land or producing food are the lifeblood of our crofting communities, and in the face of the climate and nature crisis, people producing food locally for local consumption will be crucial. So restricting decrofting for residential purposes is a must, but we must also ensure that we're not creating unintended consequences. Amendment 139, which I worked with on with the Scottish Crofting Federation, states that decrofting orders for residential purposes may only be given in connection with a rural housing burden. This policy allows us to maintain stocks of affordable housing in our rural communities, slowing rural depopulation and ensuring crofting communities can continue to thrive into the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Minister, speak to Amendment 78 and other amendments in the group.
Okay, thank you, Convener. I'm happy to say that I am content to support Edward Mountain's amendments 171 and 172. The Commission is committed to improving the application process times, and it has made strong progress over the last 2 years. However, this will remain an important issue going forward, given all the discussions we've already had this morning. Requiring the Commission to publish its service standards is appropriate. So I am happy to support Amendments 171 and 172. Turning now to my own two amendments, the Commission occasionally finds that an order or direction it has issued contains administrative error, a typographical mistake or a small inaccuracy in an attached map. So Amendment 78 will empower the Commission, where there is a manifest error, to vary the direction order to correct any inaccuracies, provided all affected parties have been notified in advance, given 14 days to comment, and none has disputed the proposed correction or relied on the original error. Amendment 79 requires that any transfer of ownership of land containing a croft, an owner-occupied croft or common grazings, whether by sale, gift or inheritance, must be notified to the Commission within 1 month. The Commission must maintain the register of crofts, including the ownership details, so it's important that it is notified of any change of ownership at the earliest opportunity. Where a new owner fails to notify the Commission or fails to comply with the information request, the Commission can reject any objection they make to a crofter's application until that failure is remedied. Now, I can't support Ariane Burgess' Amendment 139, because it makes the right to apply for a residential decrofting discretion conditional on the land being made subject to a rural housing burden. That's a significant change to how decrofting currently operates, and its interaction with the existing house site provision is unclear. And changes of this kind risk unintended consequences, and they should be consulted on fully with crofters, but I would be happy to work with Ariane Burgess prior to such a consultation to look at that point. On Edward Mountain's Amendment 210, I recognise the importance of landlords' interests, and the bill continues to recognise this as well, but I cannot support this amendment. We normally with only 3 appointed commissioners and appointments made only every few years, we need the flexibility to select the strongest overall mix of skills and experience. The bill already provides that ministers must consult the Commission on the desired attributes, while also having regard to the value a commissioner who can represent the landlord's interests. Now, this approach gives proper weight to the landlord voice without constraining ministers' ability to make the best appointment for the Commission as a whole. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you. Edward Mountain to wind up and press or withdraw Amendment 171.
Thank you very much, Convener. And just can I say at the outset that I'm grateful for the Minister considering my amendments 171 and 172 and suggesting that they will be supported. I would like to make a couple of comments, if I may, on Ariane Burgess's amendment. I think it's an interesting proposition, and I think my sadness is that this crofting bill comes to this committee when it was promised in 2010 to the previous REC committee, because crofting is not just about crofting per se, it's about language, it's about communities, it's about rural depopulation and preventing it. And I'm sad that this bill doesn't go further than that, but I'm sure that Ariane Burgess, Convener, will work with the Minister to try and find a way around it. As far as Amendment 210 is concerned, I would just say that I think in light of the considerably increasing number of communities that are in fact landlords of crofting estates, and you can look around Scotland and see them, that there would be some merit in considering this further. And I won't push the Amendment 210, Convener, if the Minister is prepared to work with me. He'll speak prior to stage 3 to see if there's a way to try and make this work at that stage. I don't know if that's an undertaking from the Minister. I'll take an intervention if that's...
I am happy to make that commitment.
Thank you very much. And on that note, I'll leave it, Convener.
Thank you, Mr Mountain. The question is that Amendment 171 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are all agreed. I call Amendment 172 in the name of Edward Mountain, already debated with Amendment 171. Edward Mountain, to move or not move?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 172 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are all agreed. The question is that Section 2 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are all agreed. I now call Amendment 133 in the name of Ariane Burgess, already debated with Amendment 1. Ariane Burgess, to move or not move?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 133 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are not agreed. There will be a division. Those supporting the amendment, please raise your hands now. Those members opposed? Those members abstaining? And the result of the vote... The result of the vote is 2 for, 7 against, no abstentions. The amendment has therefore not been agreed. I call Amendment 134 in the name of Ariane Burgess, already debated with Amendment 1. Ariane Burgess, to move or not move?
Not moved.
That question has not been moved, so it will not be considered. I call Amendment 135 in the name of Ariane Burgess, already debated with Amendment 1. Ariane Burgess, to move or not move?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 135 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not agreed. Those members supporting the amendment, please raise your hands now. Those members opposed? Those members wishing to abstain? And the result of the vote is 2 for, 7 against. The amendment has therefore not been agreed. I call Amendment 173 in the name of Rhoda Grant, already debated with Amendment 1. Rhoda Grant, to move or not move? The question is that Amendment 173 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? No. We are not agreed. There will be a division. Those supporting the amendment, please raise your hands now. Those members opposed? Those members wishing to abstain? And the result of the vote is 3 for, 6 against, no abstentions. The amendment has therefore not been agreed. I call Amendment 174 in the name of Rhoda Grant, already debated with Amendment 1. Rhoda Grant, to move or not move?
Moved.
And the question is that Amendment 174 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? No. We are not agreed. There will be a division. Those supporting the amendment, please raise your hands now. Those members opposed? Those members wishing to abstain? And the result of the vote is 2 for, 7 against, no abstentions. The amendment has therefore not been agreed. I call Amendment 136 in the name of Ariane Burgess, already debated with Amendment 1. Ariane Burgess, to move or not move?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 136 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not agreed. There will be division. Those supporting the amendment, please raise your hand now. Those members opposed? Those members wishing to abstain? And the result of the vote is 2 for, 7 against, and the amendment has therefore not been agreed. I call Amendment 175 in the name of Rhoda Grant, already debated with Amendment 1. Rhoda Grant, to move or not move?
Moved. The
question is that Amendment 175 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are not agreed. There will be division. Those supporting the amendment, please raise your hands now. Those members opposed? Those members wishing to abstain? And the result of the vote is 5 for, 4 against. The amendment has therefore been agreed. The question is that section 3 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are all agreed. I call Amendment 11 in the name of the Minister, already debated with Amendment 1. Minister, to move formally.
Moved, Convener.
The question is that Amendment 11 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are all agreed. I now call Amendment 12 in the name of Alistair Allen, grouped with Amendments 177, 188 and 41. Alistair Allen to move Amendment 12 and speak to all amendments in the group.
Thank you, Convener. I'll speak to Amendments 12 and 41. Amendment 41 enables the Land Court to assist proceedings in respect of an application by a crofter to buy their croft where the Commission has issued the crofter a suspected breach of duty notice. It suspends the crofter's right to buy where the Commission are satisfied that the crofter is not complying with their duties. This is achieved by providing that the Land Court must not make an order authorising the acquisition under Section 13(1) of the Act in such circumstances. Amendment 12 supports this by providing that when the Commission issue a suspected breach of duty notice to a crofter, they must send a copy to the Land Court. These changes will prevent a crofter from profiteering from their croft while breaching duties at the same time. There is no possible case for continuing to allow that possibility. So the amendment ensures that duties cannot be sidestepped through a right to buy application. I would ask the committee to vote for both amendments, and I move Amendment 12.
Dr Allen. Rhoda Grant to speak to Amendment 177 and other amendments in the group.
Thank you, Convener. I want to speak to Amendment 177, that removes the crofter's right to buy. And many believe that the right to buy is the reason that crofts have become much more marketable, and therefore the costs of crofts are going up. To unpick this right will mean other consequential amendments, which I have left Scottish ministers to do by regulation. This will be controversial, so I don't intend to move this amendment today, but I believe it's something we have to consider and give it. And given time restraints that we face with this bill, it might not be something we're able to do under this bill. But I really want government to give some thought to how we do this to stop the market in crofts, locking out young people from becoming crofters. Amendment 188 changes the reasons why a croft may be resumed to ensure that it is for the good of the community and in the public interest to do so. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you. Minister.
Thank you, Convener. First of all, I support Alistair Allen's amendments 12 and 41 because these strengthen or further strengthen the provision included in the bill at introduction around the enforcement of duties by restricting crofters who have not been complying with the duties from exercising the right to buy in the Land Court. However, I take the point that Rhoda Grant is saying she's not going to press these her amendments 177 and 178, but I'm going to point out the crofter's right to buy has been a fundamental part of crofting legislation since 1976. And any proposal to remove such a significant right should be informed by a proper, widespread consultation with all interested parties and a full assessment of those potential impacts. I'm aware of the concerns about the right to buy it, and I believe that is something that future reform absolutely needs to look at. But in the meantime, this bill will remove the right to buy from tenant crofters for 10 years after a croft was let to them by the Commission. And I think that's a really important point to make. And if Amendment 41 is approved, the right to buy will also be removed from crofters who are in breach of their duty. So I think we're taking steps just now to address some of the concerns that Rhoda Grant's placed on the record, but I absolutely understand the point she's making. However, removing a landlord's ability to apply for resumption on the grounds relating to the good of the croft or the estate is also a significant change, and it shouldn't be made either without full consideration and proper consultation. But I'm more than happy to meet with Rhoda Grant to discuss these issues ahead of consideration at stage 3.
Thank you, Minister. Alistair Allen, to wind up and press or withdraw Amendment 12.
Merely to press 12.
Thank you. The question is that Amendment 12 is agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are all agreed. I call amendments 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 and 21, all in the name of the Minister and all previously debated with Amendment 1. I invite the Minister to move Amendments 13 to 21 en bloc. Does any member object? I like your attitude to getting through this quickly, Minister, for sure. Does any member object to a single question being put on Amendments 13 to 21? If any member objects, I will put the question to each amendment. We have no objections. The question is that Amendments 13 to 21 are agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are all agreed. I call Amendment 137 in the name of Ariane Burgess, already debated with Amendment 1. Ariane Burgess, to move or not move?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 137 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are not agreed. There will be a division. Those supporting the amendment, please raise your hands now. Those members opposed? Those members wishing to abstain? The result of the vote is 7 for, 2 against, no abstentions. The amendment has therefore been agreed. The question is that Section 4 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are agreed. I call Amendment 22 in the name of the Minister, already debated with Amendment 1. Minister, to move formally.
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 22 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are all agreed. The question is that Section 5 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are all agreed. I call Amendment 23 in the name of the Minister, already debated with Amendment 2. Minister, to move formally.
Moved, Convener.
And the question is that Amendment 23 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are all agreed. The question is that Section 6 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are all agreed. I call Amendment 24 in the name of Alistair Allen, already debated with Amendment 1. Alistair Allen, to move or not move?
Move.
And the question is that Amendment 24 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are all agreed. The question is that Section 7 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. At this point in proceedings, I'm minded to stop for 5 minutes for a comfort break. I suspend the meeting. We now continue consideration of Stage 2 amendments, and I call Amendment 25 in the name of Alistair Allen, grouped with Amendments 176, 26, 39 and 40.
Thank you, Convener. I'll speak to Amendments 25 and 26. Amendment 25 requires the Crofting Commission to check whether the croft has been let by them and is subject to the 10-year restriction on assignation before consenting to a family assignation application. This restriction is to ensure that someone doesn't transfer their croft or sell up early in order to make a profit from a free let by the Commission. This control already applies to general assignations. My amendment will also apply it to fast-track family assignations. Amendment 26 changes the sequence of an application for a family assignation. It requires the crofter to serve a copy of the family assignation application to the landlord at the same time as they submit their application to the Commission, and to indicate to their landlord that they have 28 days to make any representations direct to the Commission. This is a more natural and familiar approach for handling any representations by them than requiring the applicant to find out the landlord's views in advance and to tell the Commission what the landlord's views were. It also means that the Commission will be informed that the landlord has been notified at the time that happens, so that if the landlord does object, the Commission will already be aware of the application to connect the objection to. I would encourage members to support my amendments in this group, and I move Amendment 25.
Thank you. I now call Rhoda Grant to speak to Amendment 176 and other amendments in the group.
Thank you, Convener. Can I just check the... Sorry, I'm in the wrong place in my notes. Can I speak to amendments 176, 39 and 40? The bill limits the number of crofts any crofter can normally hold, and there was discussion in the committee around the number of crofts, given that these can vary significantly in size. And this is the case especially where crofts have been subdivided in the past. Adding a hectareage threshold might be a more realistic gauge of what might be seen as excessive, and this amendment puts the threshold quite high. It would be a substantial size of land held by one crofter of 500 hectares. This is the limit that Mercedes Villalba sought to put in the Land Reform Bill to signify a substantial holding, which seems fair, but I'll listen to thoughts on this report and this approach. Amendments 39 and 40 slightly tweak the provisions of the bill at Section 11, which amends Section 23 and 26J of the 1993 Act to provide that where the Commission has let a croft to a crofter under Section 23(5)(c), it cannot be assigned during the next 10 years of the date of the let. Under the bill, the Commission cannot consent to the assignation of the tenancy of a croft, and the Land Court cannot make an order authorising the acquisition of the croft by the crofter. These amendments allow the Crofting Commission and the Land Court to have discretion to waive the 10-year ban in exceptional circumstances, and those circumstances may be things like someone becoming unwell and unable to work the croft anymore, or having a change of circumstances that leads to them having to leave and be in breach of their obligations under Crofting Act. So therefore, in exceptional circumstances, people can look, the Crofting Commission and Land Court can look at the individual circumstances and waive this requirement if necessary.
Thank you. Minister.
Thank you very much, Convener. And I'd simply ask the committee to support Alistair Allen's amendments 25 and 26, and also to support Rhoda Grant's 39 and 40, because these amendments make important technical changes to the provision around the assignation and acquisition of crofts. However, I can't support Amendment 176 because the amendment would prohibit a fast-track family assignation to a crofter who holds fewer than 3 crofts, but the total area of 1 or 2 of the crofts is over 500 hectares, which is nearly 2 square miles. This is a very particular set of circumstances that will very rarely arise, if ever. In addition, the Committee's Stage 1 report noted the Scottish Government's reason for not using the hectareage because of the 3-croft rule includes deemed crofts, which are unattached grazing shares and do not have a hectareage. So I'd ask Rhoda Grant not to press 176, but if she does, I'd ask the Committee to reject it.
Thank you. Alistair Allen to wind up and press or withdraw Amendment 25.
Pressed.
The question is that Amendment 25 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are all agreed. I call Amendment 176 in the name of Rhoda Grant, already debated with Amendment 25. Rhoda Grant to move or not move?
Not moved.
That has not been moved, so will not be, the question will not be put. I call Amendment 26 in the name of Alistair Allen, already debated with Amendment 25. Alistair Allen to move or not move?
Move.
And the question is that Amendment 26 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are all agreed. And the question is that Section 8 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are all agreed. I call Amendment 177 in the name of Rhoda Grant, already debated with Amendment 12. Rhoda Grant to move or not move?
Not moved.
That has not been moved, so will not be considered. I call Amendment 27 in the name of Alistair Allen, group with amendments as shown in the groupings. And I point out that if Amendment 36 agreed to, I cannot call Amendment 184 due to preemption. Alistair Allen to move Amendment 27 and speak to all amendments in the group.
Thank you, Convener. If I can speak firstly to Amendments 27, 28 and 30. Amendment 27 creates a direct route for a landowner who creates a new croft to become its owner-occupier crofter. This simplification of the current process has been requested by a wide range of crofting stakeholders. In these circumstances, when someone makes an application to the Commission to create a new croft, they will need to indicate their intent to become the owner-occupier crofter. The application will be treated as a single composite application so that the package is either accepted in full by the Commission or rejected in full. The amendment does not provide a middle option of accepting the croft creation while denying the applicant's wish to be the owner-occupier crofter. The procedure is largely the same as for the existing croft creation application, but in addition, in determining the application, the Commission will also have regard to the crofting duties and the expectation that the duties will be fulfilled by the applicant. Amendments 28 and 30 ensure that if a person becomes an owner-occupier crofter in this way, both they and their successors in title will meet the definition of an owner-occupier crofter within the Act. Moving on to Amendments 35 and 36, these would ensure that the crofting community has the opportunity to object when an owner of a vacant croft applies to the Commission for owner-occupier status. Community consideration is relevant because the Commission must assess whether the duties of residence, cultivation and purposeful use are met. Allowing objections gives the community the opportunity to comment on whether those duties are or are likely to be fulfilled. This brings these applications into line with the scrutiny that's applied to other applications, so that the Commission must first consider any objections before deciding whether to approve an application. Amendment 38 would give ministers a general power to make provision by regulations about the transfers of owner-occupied crofts. This would include a new regulatory system about the controls on the transfer of ownership or on the transfer of the owner-occupier crofter status. For example, ministers could allow the crofting community the opportunity to submit objections about who could become owner-occupier crofters. Although this proposal, as currently structured, didn't feature in the Government's 2024 crofting law reform consultation, the consultation did ask whether the sale of an owner-occupied croft to a holder of 3 or more crofts should be subject to a Crofting Commission decision, and this did receive a majority response. Many in my constituency would consider it anomalous that there are regulatory checks on who can become a tenant crofter by assignation, but no similar controls on who can become an owner-occupier crofter by purchasing an owner-occupied croft. However, I appreciate that regulating the sale of owner-occupied crofts might require wide-scale reform that might extend beyond the scope of the present bill. There are approximately 6,000 owner-occupier crofters, however, that such a change would affect the next time they sold their croft, and there could also be a significant impact on the Commission, which in turn could impact all crofters, arguably. Therefore, what I am proposing in this amendment is that the Scottish ministers, before using the power, consult appropriately, including the Crofting Commission and representatives of both owner-occupier crofters and tenant crofters. So I would urge members to support my amendments in this group, and I move Amendment 27.
Thank you. I call Rhoda Grant to speak to Amendment 178 and other amendments in the group.
Thank you, Convener. I want to speak to Amendment 178, 179, 183, 184 and 187. These amendments are trying to address the problem created by the right to buy. It seeks to make clear that ownership of a croft does not circumvent the obligations of a crofter. Amendment 78 is a paving amendment. Amendment 178 is a paving amendment. And Amendment 179 adds an extra condition that a person must meet to be considered as an owner-occupier crofter, and that the Commission is satisfied they can meet the owner-occupier crofter duties. The bill introduces an alternative way in which a person can be considered an owner-occupier crofter, the new section 19BA, where the Commission makes a determination that the person is an owner-occupier crofter. Amendment 183 provides that they cannot make such a determination unless it is satisfied that the crofter can meet the crofter duties. Amendment 187 adds a new section to provide that if the Commission is not so satisfied that they can meet the duties, then the Commission must direct the person to let the croft to any person as a crofter. It also provides a regulation-making power for ministers should they need to create other substantive provisions to make this operational. Amendment 184 provides that subsections 3 to 7 in section 58A dealing with notification and objections continue to apply to determinations under section 19BA.
Thank you. Beatrice Wishart to speak to Amendment 29 and other amendments in the group.
Thank you, Convener. I will speak to Amendments 29, 31, 32, 33 and 37. Amendment 37 removes Section 10 of the Bill, which would have prohibited transfers of owner-occupied crofts to non-natural persons. That would have prevented, for example, community landlords from purchasing an owner-occupied croft and then reletting it or selling it to a new entrant or another crofter. Instead, my other amendments in this group ensure that while a non-natural person can hold title to a croft, they cannot acquire owner-occupier status. Amendment 29 modifies Section 19B of the 1993 Act, which defines who can be an owner-occupier crofter. The first condition of owner-occupier The first condition of owner-occupier status is that a person who becomes the owner after the relevant date, the date when this part of the bill comes into force, must be an individual, meaning a natural person. Amendments 31, 32 and 33 make further consequential changes to Section 19B of the 1993 Act to ensure that if the croft is sold on to a natural person, it can once again be an owner-occupied croft. Of course, if it is let to a natural person, it will simply become a tenanted croft. Amendment 31 ensures that if a non-natural person buys a croft after the relevant date, an individual who later buys it from them can still meet the second condition for owner-occupier status. This applies so long as the non-natural person bought the croft from either an owner-occupier or from a constituting landlord. That status would also pass to the individual's successors in title. Amendment 32 makes clear that for a person to acquire owner-occupier status in these circumstances, the croft must not have been let to any crofter since it was acquired by the non-natural person. Amendment 33 ensures that the definition of owner applies to both the first and second conditions for owner-occupier crofter status in Section 19B of the 1993 Act.
Thank you. Ariane Burgess to speak to Amendment 180 and other amendments in the group.
Thanks, Convener. I've got a number of amendments in this group. I'll initially speak to Amendment 180, 181, 182 and 138 relating to Section 9, owner-occupiers. And it was one of the disappointments with this bill that it didn't do much in the way of cooling the marketisation of crofts. And this situation is locking out people longing to take on a croft and put it to use, and it also threatens to hollow out townships. We need to move away from treating crofts as another land asset to be bought and sold. With a minor tweak to Section 9, we can do something to at least remedy some of these issues, whilst also saving the Commission and the crofting community time by avoiding the need for long-winded breaches of duty procedures. Amendment 180, which I worked on with Community Land Scotland, adds a fourth condition to the owner-occupier definition as set out in the 1993 Act. It would mean that someone applying for owner-occupier status would need to provide satisfactory evidence up front that they will, A, live on the croft, and B, put that croft to permitted use. These are the same requirements that tenant crofters face. There's no good reason for owner-occupiers to be treated any differently. And I'd just like to say that Rhoda Grant's Amendment 179 has a very similar intent to my amendment. So from my perspective, it's clear that we need to do something about it. Amendment 181 and 182 give Scottish ministers the power to determine what evidence would be permissible to allow someone to meet the additional condition that would be required to receive owner-occupier status. I believe these amendments would go some way to addressing the intent of the 2010 Act, which wanted to get parity in status between owner-occupiers and tenants. Moving on to Amendments 185 and 186, related to Section 10, the transfer of crofts to people who aren't individuals. Before speaking to Amendments 185 and 186, I'd like to say that I wholeheartedly agree with the intent of Section 10. Too often in society we see ownership hidden behind obscure corporate or legal structures that prevent scrutiny. The Scottish Greens will support any move to bring ownership out into the open. My two amendments in this section add a bit of nuance that's needed for a very specific purpose. They provide an exemption for local community groups and non-profit organisations. This exemption is necessary because Section 10, as it stands, could have unintended consequences for rural housing bodies and community organisations who wish to buy croft land for housing and to attach a rural housing burden. With my amendments, which were drafted with the support of Community Land Scotland and have the backing from the Scottish Crofting Federation, we can ensure crofts can be used to meet pressing local needs, such as the need for housing. I believe that this will support the cross-party effort to slow rural depopulation and maintain thriving communities across crofting counties. And this is the reason why I can't back Amendments 29, 31, 32 and 33, which are being brought by Beatrice Wishart. In my view, these don't recognise that there are some instances in which non-natural persons should hold a croft. My Amendment 138 would require ministers to set out how many crofts one crofter can own and what should happen if this threshold is surpassed. There is evidence that some crofters are collecting multiple crofts, which isn't in the spirit of crofting and is damaging the crofting community. This situation is especially galling for the near 800 people who are actively looking to take on a croft via the land matching service. As long as we leave the market for crofts unregulated, those with the deepest pockets will be able to hoover up crofts. So my amendment would help mitigate against this. And I do recognise the conversation prior to this stage 2 with the government about local people wanting to gather crofts for family, but I do think there needs to be some balance in that process.
Concluded. Minister to speak to Amendment 34 and other amendments in the group.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. I'll start off by saying that I'm happy to support all of Alistair Allen's amendments in this group, numbers 27, 28, 30, 35, 36 and 38, which addresses various points that have been raised in the debate already. In particular, Amendment 38 would provide a power for ministers to introduce regulation of transfers of owner-occupied crofts, but subject to appropriate consultation. I also support Beatrice Wishart's amendments 29, 31, 32, 33 and 37. These amendments provide a practical solution to the problem identified at stage 1, where a rural housing body or other organisation wants to take title to an owner-occupied croft so that they can be let or sold to a new crofter. The key point is that we don't need to restrict who can hold title. What matters is that it's a natural person can have owner-occupier status. My own Amendment 34 defines the relevant date referred to in Beatrice Wishart's Amendments 29 and 31, and it makes clear that the provision requiring all new owner-occupier crofters to be natural persons will take effect as soon as we commence this section of the Act for the Bill. In turning to Rhoda Grant's Amendments 178, 179 and 187, which add new conditions to Section 19B of the 1993 Act, with the effect that a person will only acquire the status of an owner-occupied crofter if the Commission is satisfied that the person is able to comply with the duties of an owner-occupier crofters in Section 19C of that Act. The duties are that the person must reside within 32 kilometres of the croft, must not misuse or neglect the croft, cultivate the croft, or put it to another purposeful use, and keep it in a fit state for cultivation or such use. This new condition is not intended to apply only at the time the status is acquired. It would mean that the person would cease to be an owner-occupier crofter as soon as the Commission was no longer satisfied that the condition was met, even if the Commission had not told them about any concern that they might have. It would mean that the status of the person changes according to the view of the Commission, so that the person might, without knowing about it, cease to be an owner-occupier crofter when there is a concern and then become one again if the concern is removed. And that's unfair. It cuts across the existing processes. And currently, if the Commission considers an owner-occupier crofter to be in breach, there is a period when that person is invited to make an undertaking about how to resolve the matter. That could include undertaking to return to the croft in the near future, to make arrangements for it to be cultivated, to let it on a short lease, perhaps to divide it or to sell it. This process also gives the Commission time to pause and to reflect on the best solution in all the circumstances. All of these options would be wiped away by these amendments, and in particular, Amendment 187 means that the Commission must immediately direct the person to let the land. And to be clear, I don't agree that we need to add a fourth section to Section 19B of the 1993 Act. Section 58A of the Act already gives the Commission a legal obligation to take into account whether duties will be met when deciding on any application. And one of the Commission's main purposes is to see crofts worked and the residency duty met, so it's unlikely that it will give owner-occupied status to someone who isn't going to fulfil those duties. And as the committee knows, crofting law is already incredibly complex. This would only add further requirements when we have to clear evidence that they will fix a known problem, and that is not known to be that's not the case here. I understand where members are coming from for these proposals, but for all these reasons I can't support them. The changes proposed would have a very significant impact on owner-occupier of crofts and raise significant doubts about the rights and obligations of an owner, such that the measures may not be within competence. And turning to Ariane Burgess's amendments 180, 181 and 182, they've got the same policy objectives and raise similar concerns, so I can't support them either. I will, yeah.
You talked earlier about supporting Beatrice Wishart's amendments around the rural housing burden. Could you just remind me what it is that you have confidence in her amendments? Because I said I wasn't going to support them, but I'd just like to get reassurance.
I'm confident that the proposals we put forward to Beatrice Wishart cover the issues that were raised during the earlier parts of the debate. I'm not quite sure why the member, I'm not sure how we can address in the committee. Chair. Through the chair, I'm not sure how the member considers this is necessary at this stage to try to take the amendments from Beatrice.
Minister, I'm just trying to understand your points around Beatrice Wishart's amendments so I can see if I can change my approach and potentially support those amendments.
Well, we don't need to restrict who can hold the title. It's only that the natural person can have the owner-occupied status. So I think that the amendments that were put forward, that Beatrice Wishart has put forward, covers the concerns that you have. Sorry, that the member has. I apologise, Chair. So therefore, I would ask the member to support Beatrice Wishart's amendments. But as I said right at the start, there are lots of other things that we can discuss. This bill is not going to cover all the concerns that we currently have, and there is more work to be done on it. Okay. I'm not sure where I got to. I should have marked my page. Sorry. Yeah, I'm in agreement with Rhoda Grant's Amendment 184, but it won't be needed if Alistair Allen's Amendment 36, which goes further, is approved. And Ariane Burgess Amendment 138 would create a regulation-making power to allow ministers to make regulations limiting how many owner-occupied crofts one person can hold. That's a contentious issue within crofting, because there would be some crofters supporting this and others would be very much opposed. So a change of that scale would require much wider consultation than simply consulting the Commission. That is important, but I think it requires much wider consultation. I will, yeah.
Thank you. So it's good to hear that you recognise that there are some views that it's contentious and that something needs to be done about it. And I'm minded to not move the amendment if we can have some assurance, as I think you have said, the Minister has said, that we can, the government's willing to take forward some level of consultation and actually get to the bottom of it, because it is a problem in community to get an imbalance, but there is also a recognised kind of history and familial relationship to places. So it is something that I think we need to look at, because, as I said in my speaking earlier in the debate, there's around 800 people really wanting to croft and not getting access to it. We absolutely need to have more people on the land. As Andrew Thinn said, we've got to transform the way in which we're using our land from suboptimally to flourishing, thriving land.
None of which I disagree with, but I think what we also got from the evidence session from Andrew Thinn and Gary Campbell was the fact that the crofting duties are being cracked down on. They're getting out into the communities and they're making sure that crofting duties are being upheld. They're pushing people. That in itself will help to free up crofts. So it's the start of a process. We have got a lot of years of history here that we are working with. So I believe that the current approach that we're taking is the right one, and I think that is going to help us on the way. But more than happy to carry on the discussion after the debate. So I will move on to Ariane Burgess's amendments 185 and 186 that would allow a community group or a not-for-profit organisation to become an owner-occupier. I can see why this might be suggested as a way of addressing concerns raised at stage 1 about rural housing bodies taking title to support new entrants, but as Beatrice Wishart has already set out, I don't think it's the right solution. It doesn't feel appropriate for any non-natural person to be an owner-occupier crofter when we've got a better solution which is currently available. And I'll finish there, Convener. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Alistair Allen to wind up and press or withdraw Amendment 27.
Pressed.
The question is that Amendment 27 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are all agreed. I call Amendment 178 in the name of Rhoda Grant, already debated with Amendment 27. Rhoda Grant to move or not move?
Not move.
That does not be moved, so will not be considered. I call Amendment 28 in the name of Alistair Allen, already debated with Amendment 27. Alistair Allen to move or not move?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 28 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are all agreed. I call Amendment 29 in the name of Beatrice Wishart, already debated with Amendment 27. Beatrice Wishart to move or not move?
Move.
The question is that Amendment 29 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are all agreed. I call Amendment 30 in the name of Alistair Allen, already debated with Amendment 27. Alistair Allen to move or not move?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 30 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are all agreed. I call Amendment 31 in the name of Beatrice Wishart, already debated with Amendment 27. Beatrice Wishart to move or not move?
Move.
The question is that Amendment 31 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are all agreed. I call Amendment 32 in the name of Beatrice Wishart, already debated with Amendment 27. Beatrice Wishart to move or not move? The question is that Amendment 32 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are all agreed. I call Amendment 179 in the name of Rhoda Grant, already debated with Amendment 27. Rhoda Grant to move or not move? Sorry. No. The member is indicating she doesn't wish to move, so will not be considered. Call Amendment 180 in the name of Ariane Burgess, already debated with Amendment 27. Ariane Burgess to move or not move?
Not moved.
That has not been moved, so will not be considered. I call Amendment 33 in the name of Beatrice Wishart, already debated with Amendment 27. Beatrice Wishart to move or not move? The question is that Amendment 33 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are all agreed. I call Amendment 34 in the name of the Minister, already debated with Amendment 27. Minister to move formally.
Moved, Convener.
And the question is that Amendment 34 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are all agreed. I call Amendment 181 in the name of Ariane Burgess, already debated with Amendment 27. Ariane Burgess, to move or not move?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 181 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not agreed. There will be division. Those supporting the amendment, please raise your hand now. Those members opposed? Those members wishing to abstain? And the result of the vote is 1 for, 8 against. The amendment has... No. Okay. No. Okay. Do you want to run it again? I'm just going to call that vote again. The question is that Amendment 180, excuse me, 182 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are not agreed. There will be a division. Those members supporting the amendment, please raise your hand now. Those members opposed? Those members wishing to abstain? And the result of the vote is 2 for, 7 against. The amendment has therefore not been agreed. Excuse me. I call Amendment 183 in the name of Rhoda Grant, already debated with Amendment 27. Rhoda Grant, to move or not move?
Not moved. Not moved.
We're in 182. We've missed one out. That one.
I beg your pardon. I think we have missed a vote there. I'm going to go back to Amendment 181 in the name of Ariane Burgess. I'm just going to rerun that because of confusion over 181 and 182. So I call Amendment 181 in the name of Ariane Burgess, already debated with Amendment 27. Ariane Burgess, to move or not move?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 181 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not agreed. There will be a division. Those supporting the amendment, please raise your hand now. Those members opposed? Those members wishing to abstain? And the result of the vote is 2 for, 7 against. The amendment has therefore not been agreed. I now call Amendment 182 in the name of Ariane Burgess, already debated with Amendment 27. Ariane Burgess, to move or not move?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 182 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not agreed. There will be a division. Those supporting the amendment, please raise your hand now. Those members opposed? Those members wishing to abstain? And the result of the vote is 2 for, 7 against. The amendment has therefore not been agreed. I call Amendment 183 in the name of Rhoda Grant, already debated with Amendment 27. Rhoda Grant, to move or not move?
Not moved.
That has not been moved, so will not be considered. I call Amendment 35 in the name of Alistair Allen, already debated with Amendment 27. Alistair Allen, to move or not move?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 35 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are all agreed. I call Amendment 36 in the name of Alistair Allen, already debated with Amendment 27. And I remind members that if Amendment 36 is agreed to, I cannot call Amendment 184 due to preemption. Alistair Allen, to move or not move?
Moved.
And the question is that Amendment 36 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are all agreed. I call... the question is that Section 9 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are all agreed. I now call Amendment 138 in the name of Ariane Burgess, already debated with Amendment 27. Ariane Burgess, to move or not move?
Not moved.
That has not been moved, so will not be considered. I call Amendment 185 in the name of Ariane Burgess, already debated with Amendment 27. Ariane Burgess, to move or not move?
Not moved.
That has not been moved, so will not be considered. I call Amendment 186 in the name of Ariane Burgess, already debated with Amendment 27. Ariane Burgess, to move or not move?
Not moved.
That has not been moved, so will not be considered. Excuse me. I call Amendment 37 in the name of Beatrice Wishart, already debated with Amendment 27. Beatrice Wishart, to move or not move?
Move.
The question is that Amendment 37 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are all agreed. Excuse me. I call Amendment 38 in the name of Alistair Allen, already debated with Amendment 27. Alistair Allen, to move or not move?
Moved.
And the question is that Amendment 38 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are all agreed. I call Amendment 187 in the name of Rhoda Grant, already debated with Amendment 27. Rhoda Grant, to move or not move?
Not moved.
That has not been moved, so will not be considered. I call Amendment 188 in the name of Rhoda Grant, already debated with Amendment 12. Rhoda Grant, to move or not move?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 188 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not agreed. There will be a division. Those supporting the amendment, please raise your hands now. Those members opposed? Those members wishing to abstain? And the result of the vote is 2 for, 7 against. The amendment has therefore not been agreed. I call Amendment 189 in the name of Rhoda Grant, already debated with Amendment 1. Rhoda Grant, to move or not move?
Not moved.
That has not been moved, so will not be considered. I call Amendment 39 in the name of Rhoda Grant, already debated with Amendment 25. Rhoda Grant, to move or not move?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 39 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are all agreed. I call Amendment 40 in the name of Rhoda Grant, already debated with Amendment 25. Rhoda Grant, to move or not move?
Moved.
And the question is that Amendment 40 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are all agreed. The question is that Section 11 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are all agreed. I now call Amendment 41 in the name of Alistair Allen, already debated with Amendment 12. Alistair Allen, to move or not move?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 41 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are all agreed. I call Amendment 190 in the name of Rhoda Grant, already debated with Amendment 1. Rhoda Grant, to move or not move?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 190 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are not agreed. There will be a division. Those supporting the amendment, please raise your hands now. Those members opposed? Those members wishing to abstain? And the result of the vote is 5 for, 4 against. The amendment has therefore been agreed. I call Amendment 42 in the name of the Minister, grouped with amendments as shown in the groupings. And I point out that if Amendment 204 is agreed to, I cannot call Amendment 86 due to preemption. Minister, to move Amendment 42 and speak to all amendments in the group.
Thank you, Convener. Amendments 42, 43, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99 and 126 would ensure that crofts have to be registered before most regulatory applications be made. Currently, there are 2 separate routes for processing Commission regulatory applications, depending on whether that croft has previously been registered in the crofting register or not. This can result in parties having different roles depending on whether the croft has been registered. The amendments will require that applications can only be made in respect of crofts that have already been registered for the following application types: as enlargement, exchange, assignation, division, resumption, decrofting, subletting, apportionment and letting of an owner-occupied croft. The amendment also makes consequential changes to the 2010 Act as respects provision about registration. This change will simplify these processes and bring clarity, consistency and certainty. Amendments 42 and 43 are made in consequence of the amendments just discussed, amending Section 12 of the Bill, which made some modifications to the 1993 and 2010 Acts that are no longer needed given the broader changes being made about registration requirements. In Amendment 95, the rule for crofts to be registered before an application is also applied to making an application to the Land Court for a resumption. Amendment 96 operates on the assumption that for an application for reversion of resumption, the croft will have already been registered, because resumption has been a trigger for registering a croft since the 2010 Act was brought into force. And Amendments 80, 81 and 82. Section 22 of the Bill modifies the 2010 Act to require a tenant crofter of an unregistered croft who acquires title to the croft to apply to the registers to register the croft in the crofting register. These amendments apply the same requirement to the circumstances where, instead of the tenant crofter acquiring titles themselves, they nominate someone else to do so, and the effect being in that circumstance the nominee will be required to apply to register the croft. And Amendments 83, 84 and 85, the purpose of these amendments is to ensure that the fee handling for registration is consistent with the legislative approach taken to payment of registration fees in the Keeper's other registers, such as the Land Register. And the effect of Amendment 83 is to allow the Keeper to accept an application for registration if the payment has already been submitted to the Register of Scotland as an alternative to arrangements having been made to pay it in due course, and if neither has been done, the Keeper must reject the application. The effect of Amendments 84 and 85 is to remove the Commission's role in checking that payments have been submitted for an application in respect of a registration, even if of a registration event affecting common grazings or land held in Runrig, as this function has effectively been transferred to the keeper. Now, I can't support Edward Mountain's amendments 204, 205, 207, 209. I'd be very happy to work with him ahead of stage 3 with a view to finding a different solution so that the forms are prescribed by the Crofting Commission and not the Scottish Ministers by regulations. The Commission are very experienced in such matters and already provide some forms for a wide range of regulatory processes, and it is far more efficient to allow the Commission to adapt and to improve the content of a regulatory form and how it is processed than having to draft and revisit regulations. So I'd ask Mr Mountain not to press those amendments, but if he does, I would ask the committee to reject them. I do, however, support extending the time period for the landlord to respond from 14 days to 21. So I'd ask the committee to support Beatrice Wishart's Amendment 86. I can't support Edward Mountain's Amendments 206 and 208. When the Commission receives a first registration, it already checks application. It already checks, in accordance with Section 7.3 of the 2010 Act, the information contained in or accompanying the application against the information relating to the croft in the Register of Crofts. If there is a dispute between the landlord and the crofter, then that should always remain a matter for the Land Court. The Commission don't have the authority to resolve registration disputes, and even a voluntary Commission function of trying to get parties to agree would be very resource intensive, and it could also result in a crofter's registration being stalled for long periods of time. So I'd ask Mr Mountain not to press Amendments 206 and 208, and if he does, I'd ask the committee to reject them. And amendments in my own name, 87, 88 and 89. The Keeper of the Registers of Scotland has come to the conclusion that it would not use the power to make corrections to a manifest error in the Crofting Register of their own volition. Therefore, there is no point in making provision in statute for something which is realistically never actually going to be used. However, Section 26 of the Bill continues to include a new provision in the 1993 Act, which would allow the Crofting Commission to direct the Keeper to rectify material errors in the Crofting Register, where the means of correcting it is clear and obvious and the parties involved have been consulted. This will make it easier for clear errors to be corrected quickly and with the minimum of cost for the parties that are involved. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you, Minister. Edward Mountain to speak to Amendment 204 and other amendments in the group.
Thank you very much, Convener. And the reason why I brought these amendments was to try and avoid costly legal action at a later date. From experience, I know that sometimes defining the boundaries of crofts are virtually impossible. Indeed, having worked for a landlord, it was often the case that looking back at maps dating back to prior to the 1900s, that it was difficult to ascertain where the watercourses were and whether indeed which croft owned them. So my aim was to try and prevent that. And certainly working more recently, before I became a politician, with SSEN, trying to work out where the route of electric lines ran and which person would get the benefit of the payments, often ended up in a dispute between two crofters. So my aim of these amendments is trying to bring forward something that is reasonable and to avoid costly appeals at a later date, which would incur costs on the Commission, the crofter and also the landlord. So I've heard, Convener, what the Minister has said about these. I do seek to try and seek a resolution to it. And if the Minister is prepared to meet with me to discuss trying to find a suitable alternative to these amendments, I would be happy not to push them on the basis that there might be a solution found elsewhere. And if that's not possible, I could bring them forward at stage 3. Convener, I notice the Minister's nodding his head. It would be useful to have something on the record to say that. So
I am content to meet and have those discussions.
Thank you. And at that stage, I'll close what I want to say.
Thank you, Mr Mountain. Beatrice Wishart to speak to Amendment 86 and other amendments in the group.
Thanks, Convener. I will just speak to Amendment 86. Section 24 of the Bill introduces a right for croft landlords to comment on a croft registration application before it's submitted to the Commission. It's intended that this voluntary process will support greater accuracy in the croft maps submitted for registration. This amendment extends the landlord's comment period from 14 days to 21, providing a more realistic timeframe to review the application. Thanks, Convener.
Minister, to wind up.
Nothing further to add, Convener. Thank you.
I'm just going to go through the next couple of questions, if that's okay, Minister. The question is Amendment 42 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? I call Amendment 43 in the name of the Minister, already debated with Amendment 42. Minister, to move formally.
Moved, Convener.
The question is that Amendment 43 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. And the question is that Section 12 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. I'm going to just suspend the meeting briefly for a comfort break. I suspend the meeting. We now continue our consideration of Stage 2 amendments, and I call Amendment 139 in the name of Ariane Burgess, already debated with Amendment 171. Ariane Burgess, to move or not move?
Not moved.
That has not been moved, so will not be considered. The question is that Section 13 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are all agreed. I call Amendment 44 in the name of the Minister. Group with amendments as shown in the groupings. Minister, to move Amendment 44 and speak to all amendments in the group.
Thank you, Convener. I move Amendment 44. Amendment 44 to 64 make technical refinements to those powers, enhancing their flexibility for use in different circumstances. These amendments resolve points raised with the committee during Stage 1 and also further points of detail raised subsequently by the Commission. Amendment 44 clarifies that if there is an unresolved registration challenge affecting a register croft, that croft cannot be included in a boundary adjustment application until the challenge has been resolved. Amendment 55 extends the restrictions regarding challenges to the registration of the subject crofts to boundary remapping applications as well as all boundary adjustments. These safeguards will avoid any risk of two different applications operating concurrently in relation to the boundaries of the same newly registered croft. Amendments 46 and 59 give the Commission power to impose conditions when approving a boundary adjustment or remapping. For example, to give consent subject to a specified conveyancing being completed. Applicants can therefore avoid the risk of their croft boundaries diverging from the boundaries in their title. Amendments 49 and 62 are consequential to 46 and 59 and provide that if any conditions are specified by the Commission, the direction of the boundary adjustment or remapping expires 3 months after the date on which the conditions are satisfied instead of the date on which the direction was made. Amendment 51, 52, 53 and 54 provide that an owner or part owner of a croft may be the applicant for a boundary remapping. This is a significant extension of the boundary remapping and means that it will be capable of resolving problems for crofts in multiple ownership so long as all of the owners agree. This was a recommendation from the Crofting Law Group in the SUMP. And a key requirement of the boundary remapping power is that it can only be exercised if all the affected parties consent. So amendments 56 and 58 bring flexibility to the specification of who is an affected party, given that decision to the Commission instead of prejudging it in legislation. Amendment 63 gives Scottish Ministers a power by regulation, subject to a negative procedure, to specify classes of people whose consent must be required or to allow new classes of applicant. For example, the power could be used to extend the scope of boundary remapping so that in future an application could be made by a Grazings Committee in regard to the boundary between a common grazing and a croft. My other amendments in this group, 45, 47, 48, 50, 57, 60 and 61, make minor adjustments to the wording in section 14 to ensure accuracy, clarity and consistency with other parts of the 1993 Act, and I move Amendment 44.
Thank you, Minister. Minister, to wind up.
Nothing further to add, Convener. Thank you.
And the question is that Amendment 44 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are all agreed. I call amendments 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63 and 64, all in the name of the Minister and all previously debated with Amendment 44. I invite the Minister to move amendments 45 to 64 en bloc.
Moved, Convener.
Does any member object to a single question being put on amendments 45 to 64? No member has an objection. So the question is that amendments 45 to 64 are agreed. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are all agreed. And that is a relief. Thank you. The question is that section 14 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. I now call Amendment 140 in the name of Ariane Burgess, grouped with Amendments 191 and 192. Ariane Burgess, to move Amendment 140 and speak to all amendments in the group.
I move Amendment 140. Thanks, Convener. I feel it's important that we encourage crofters to put land to environmental use or forestry, and it can be hard to make environmental use pay, and yet we really need crofters and other land managers to put their land to this use if we're to meet our nature and climate targets. Amendment 140 would extend the Crofting Agricultural Grant Scheme to woodland crofts and crofter-led forestry. The bulk of new crofts are woodland crofts, given they are often established on former Forestry and Land Scotland land, These come with restocking requirements, and yet the CAGS is currently unavailable for woodland crofts as the grants are specifically tied to agricultural activity. Also, forestry grants are highly competitive, so it's difficult for crofters to access them. And even if they do, they don't reflect the cost reality of undertaking this activity. Even where a crofter is pursuing dual usage that is sustainable and regenerative, such as agroforestry or planting shelter belts or fencing for rotational grazing, they're often rejected for subsidy from some rural payments and inspection division offices because they're not deemed agriculturally justifiable. Amendment 140 would greatly relieve this pressure and allow more crofters to explore environmental and more nuanced use of their crofts. For example, crofters could use their land to meet the demand for native tree nurseries that would help us meet tree planting and biodiversity targets. Crofters are already doing this to an extent, but a wider form of CAGS could help more to engage in this activity. Amendments 191 and 192 seek to introduce a government-backed loan facility for crofters. All too often, commercial loans don't match up well with crofting. This is mostly because crofting is, and should of course remain, a regulated system of land tenure. Commercial loans are usually unavailable on land subject to government regulations. This is also the case for accessing finance for croft housing or other large capital investments crofters may have to make. On the housing front in particular, a croft house would need to be decrofted to be eligible for a commercial loan, a nonsensical situation that puts croft housing at risk of being lost to the wider housing market. In the Highlands and Islands, this is especially problematic given the overheated market that's been fuelled by second homes and Airbnbs. So, if the Scottish Government is serious about halting depopulation, creating affordable rural housing, and getting crofting land over to genuine crofters, we need to enable conditional finance in this space. The Crofting House Grant Scheme, even with the proposed changes, isn't providing enough to properly help those who lack the necessary funds to build a croft house. And all the more so since the COVID pandemic, as building costs in the Highlands and Islands have surged by an average of 5% each year. I also mentioned other investments such as loans that could support. We need to acknowledge, for example, that crofters need to have money upfront for subsidies like CAGS. This subsidy only pays crofters once the project in question is completed, so they must have favourable government-backed terms to be able to access these funds. So I'd urge members to accept this amendment and provide these crucial loans to crofters. Thank you.
Minister.
Thank you, Convener. I'm unable to support Ariane Burgess' amendments 140, 191 and 192 because the Scottish Government already provides financial assistance to supporting the planting of trees and woodland creation. And Section 42 of the 1993 Act does not exclude these activities. It has been intentionally framed in broad terms to allow for a wide range of financial assistance to crofters. In regard to Amendment 191, there is already provision in the 93 Act under Section 46A that allows for ministers to provide for loans. And once again, this provision has been intentionally framed in broad terms to allow for loans to be available for any purpose deemed suitable. In Amendment 192, I don't think it would be appropriate to compel any future government to provide loans. As I said, 46A of the 93 Act already allows ministers to provide loans to crofters and others. And when considering financial assistance, it's not uncommon for a government to have to decide between providing loans, grants or both. And I would not want that choice to be reduced. If the member allows me to finish. What I will say is that we are currently looking to revise the CAGS, and part of that is what projects that are going to be supported, and discussions are already underway with stakeholders. So I'll take the intervention, but with that information in mind.
Thanks very much, Minister. That is something I wanted to get a better sense of, because clearly maybe it's a communication issue that these measures are in place that people could access. But I think it is good to hear that you are looking at revising the CAG scheme to make it more accessible for crofters to actually do the things that they want to do, especially as we have this big push for ecological restoration that needs to be taking place across our land. So I think that I'll be interested to keep track of the development on the what you're looking at in terms of the CAG scheme.
Okay, well, with that in mind, I don't think we need any of this in primary legislation. I hope the member appreciates that there's work ongoing, and I would ask the member not to press these amendments.
Thank you, Minister. Ariane Burgess, to wind up, press or withdraw Amendment 140.
Given the Minister has given me assurances that they've taken, that the government has taken on board the issues around crofters actually accessing the funding that they need, I am minded not to press 140.
Okay, the member has indicated they wish to withdraw the amendment. Does any member object? They don't. I call Amendment 191 in the name of Ariane Burgess, already debated with Amendment 140. Ariane Burgess, to move or not move?
Not moved.
That has not been moved, so will not be considered. I call Amendment 192 in the name of Ariane Burgess, already debated with Amendment 140. Ariane Burgess, to move or not move?
Not moved.
It's not been moved, so will not be considered. I now call Amendment 65 in the name of the Minister, grouped with amendments as shown in the groupings, and I point out that if Amendment 67 is agreed to, I cannot call Amendment 193 due to preemption. Minister, to move Amendment 65 and speak to all amendments in the group.
Thank you, Convener. I move Amendment 65. Amendment 65, 66, 67, 68, 69 and 73 are designed to introduce a more comprehensive and flexible system for achieving our policy aims around grazing shares and their connections to crofts. My officials have reviewed the provisions in the bill with the help of a group of stakeholders with legal expertise, and they have concluded that provision currently in section 15(2) of the bill is inflexible and might have adverse consequences. Amendment 67 therefore removes that section from the bill, and Amendments 65, 68, 69 and 73, supported by Amendment 66, introduce a new set of provisions. Subsection 2, inserted by Amendment 65, provides that if a crofter purchases the entire croft, including the grazing right, that right counts as part of the croft for the full range of purposes of crofting regulation. Therefore, it cannot be separated from the in-by land unless a division application is approved by the Commission. Amendment 69 reinforces and supplements that 65. It explicitly provides that any grazing right held by an owner, occupier, crofter, whether as purchased, heritable right or as a deemed croft, held in tenancy, is part of the croft for the purposes of Section 19D of the 93 Act. This means that the right cannot be separated from the rest of the croft except by a division application approved by the Commission. Amendment 68 considers what happens if an owner-occupier crofter, who also holds a deemed croft, sells his in-by land without having secured approval to separate them. It provides that in this circumstance, an assignation of the deemed croft automatically takes place. This will apply to all deemed crofts held by that owner-occupier crofter in the relevant common grazings, including any deemed croft from before the passage of this bill. Amendment 73 will require the crofting register to record links between crofts and deemed crofts which are held by the same person. The registration schedule for the croft is to include a reference to the deemed croft and vice versa. This provision will be forward-looking and so may not be applied to shares which had become deemed crofts before the commencement of this section until they are next transferred. However, even when these links are not recorded in the crofting register, the constraints on the separation and other provisions set out in 65, 69 and 68 will still apply. There are other important changes made by Amendment 65. Firstly, it creates one new situation where the right to buy applies to an apportionment. This is if someone who is not a crofter holds a separated share which has been permanently apportioned to them. In that situation, it makes sense for them to be able to buy the land, which would then become a new owner-occupied croft. Secondly, it provides that if an owner-occupier creator lets a croft to a new tenant crofter, any grazing shares goes to and it becomes appurtenant to the new tenancy. Thirdly, it confirms that a Grazings Committee and the Crofting Commission have the same management and oversight roles for all grazing shares, no matter who holds them or in what form. Now, I agree with the intent of Rhoda Grant's Amendments 193, 194 and 195, as they appear to be designed to do largely the same things as what we provide in the set of amendments that I've just described. However, they are not needed if the full package of my amendments are approved, and moreover, my amendments do not require further regulations to be made to achieve the desired effect. So I'd ask Rhoda Grant not to pursue them. Amendments 70, 71, 72 and 75 make small improvements to the bill for readability and clarity, and I hope that members will support them. I can't support Ariane Burgess' Amendment 141, and I appreciate the importance of dispute resolution on common grazings, but regulation-making power require that they must be given a power to intervene in this. A very specific aspect of the Commission activity is not necessary or, in fact, appropriate. The Commission already has a broad range of general functions and duties which could extend to this and have the right to devote resources to mediating in disputes, and indeed, if necessary, the Scottish Government already has the power to direct how they fulfil their functions. It isn't clear what this new power would actually add other than further legislation and process. I also can't support Edward Mountain's amendment. Each party will be considering its approach to further crofting reform ahead of the upcoming elections, and I don't think it's helpful at this stage to single out one aspect of this, however important it is to be prioritised for the review as a matter of law. As Ariane Burgess will no doubt explain, her Amendment 163 corrects an important deficiency in the legislation regarding the review of part of an apportionment, and I would encourage members to support 163, and I move Amendment 65. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you, Minister. Rhoda Grant to speak to Amendment 193 and other amendments in the group.
Thank you, Convener. I want to speak to 193, 194 and 195. As the Minister talked about in his speech, 193 and 194 do largely what his amendments seek to do, so I don't intend moving those, so I won't speak to them in detail. I'm not so convinced that 195 is covered by his amendments, and 195 provides ministers powers to make provision enabling grazing shares to be reunited with the croft that they originally pertained to. And it's clear that this would be desirable given owners of grazing shares might not be aware of their status. And those who might be holding on to those shares may also be looking to financially benefit from the work of grazing committees. And that was something that was creating a deal of angst to crofters, where grazing shares were held by someone with no attachment to the community. And as I say, I don't think the Minister's amendments deal with that issue. If they do, I'd be happy to take an intervention, but if not, I would proceed to move Amendment 195.
Take an intervention. The reunification of grazing shares, the bill that we have in front of us already does what Rhoda Grant is looking to do. I think it's 52ZB, reunification of grazing shares with the croft. Scottish ministers may by regulations make provision to enable reunification of any share in grazing land with the croft to which it once pertained. So I hope that gives the member comfort. And if she doesn't press it and there are concerns, I'm happy to have a discussion ahead of stage 3. And if that still doesn't satisfy the member, it can then come back at stage 3.
I'm happy to accept that reassurance, and I have nothing more to add.
Ms Grant, and I call Ariane Burgess to speak to Amendment 141 and other amendments in the group.
Thanks, Convener. During the committee's discussion of this bill, there was a good deal of reflection on disputes in rural areas and crofting communities. In our round-table session with stakeholders, I proposed creating a soft-touch mediatory function that could work in a similar way to the successful Common Ground Forum, which was intended to take the heat out of, and very much did so, take the heat out of misunderstandings related to deer management. There was a reflection during the committee session that members of the Crofting Commission would, in the past, have people on the ground who helped to resolve conflict along with their other duties. It appears that this practice died out when the Commission faced budget cuts over ensuing years. As we all know, things that disappear can be mightily difficult to resurrect down the line. Amendment 1... I'm going to finish my point and then I will. Amendment 141 is my proposal to resurrect some of that old function that the Crofting Commission performed. Applying specifically to Grazing Committee, it would require Scottish ministers to give the Commission powers to intervene or seek to resolve conflicts between a Grazings Committee and the owner of a common grazings. I remember when I suggested this to stakeholders at the roundtable, the idea was receive support from across the spectrum. I take the Minister's earlier points in this part of our debate, but I do think we need to recognise that there is conflict across rural Scotland, and what I see is what we need to be acknowledging is that just as we see infrastructure like roads and bridges, so physical infrastructure, as crucial for our rural communities, we also need what I'm calling soft infrastructure, that is the support for people to come together to resolve misunderstandings. And I do take the point that this is something that the Commission can take on, and I feel encouraged by the chair of the Crofting Commission's approach and presence at the committee. But I think we have a real opportunity to take the heat out of some of the points of tension between crofters and landowners, and even between crofters. And I do think this is something that the Commission needs to be properly resourced to take on board. And if the Minister would still like to intervene, I'll take that intervention.
If the member is content to do so, I would just point out we have considerably increased the funding to the Crofting Commission. That has allowed them to carry out a lot of the functions that we talked about earlier on in terms of ensuring duties are held. It's within the Crofting Commission's best interests that we have communities that are working together. I don't see that we need to put it in primary legislation. There is already provisions in the bill that could, if ministers then feel that something needs to be done, there is provisions within the bill that could then compel the Crofting Commission to do stuff. I absolutely understand the point that the member is making. There are clearly disputes that we need to try to resolve. It was in the 1993 Act where the provisions are made. I'm just being clarified by Michael. But I take the point on board. I don't think it's needed in this bill, and the Crofting Commission have set out their stall, how they're going to go forward, and I think currently that's a good position to be in. I don't think we need it in the legislation.
I thank the Minister for that intervention, and I take on board all the points. And I think, as I said, I think the reassurance that there is increased funding in the Commission's budget, that is heartening to hear, and good to make sure that that happens year on year. I just want to underscore the point that we need to really see mediation, conflict resolution across rural Scotland as an essential part of how we move forward into the future, because there's a lot of change and challenge that is facing our communities, and with change, change can be extremely unsettling for people, and being supported in that process is something that I believe is a compassionate approach for our communities. Turning now to Amendment 163, Section 52.12 of the 1993 Act allows the Commission on the application of a township, crofter or grazings committee or owner to review an appointment application and choose whether to vary, revoke or bring to an end an appointment. This amendment will accommodate those situations where the purpose of an appointment review application for the Crofting Commission is only to bring a part of the apportionment to an end. Well, I might have said that, yeah, okay. Apportionment to an end, such as an access track or communal facility, which may have inadvertently included an original apportionment. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you. Edward Mountain to speak to Amendment 199 and other amendments in the group.
Thank you very much. Can I just say that I welcome at the outset the Minister's offer to meet with Rhoda Grant to discuss the sorting out of common grazings. It's been a problem that I've been acutely aware of for many, many years, with apportionments of the common grazings not held by people in crofting communities, and then the issue of how funds that are attributable to the common grazings then end up going away from the common grazings or not being spent on what the common grazings are all about. I think I have examples historically of money being spent by common grazing committees on children's playgrounds and churches, I don't think either of those are the functions of the Common Grazings Committee. So I welcome that, and whilst I don't want to muscle in on Rhoda Grant's negotiations with the Minister, I'd like to be kept informed, if I may, on those, because I think they're vitally important. Can I just say, I would support the intention of Tim Eagle's Amendment 211 and Ariane's Burgess's Amendment 212 on wider consultation, which will be able to look at the bigger picture in relation to crofting. But my Amendment 199 would require ministers to consult specifically on measures which would improve on the regulation of common grazings. With hindsight, I probably think I could have gone further to also require regulations to be made to deliver such measures, and I'd be happy to discuss these with the Minister before stage 3. But I don't think he's minded to agree the principle today, which I think is disappointing. And the reason why I will be pushing it, Minister, is that certain promises were made to the committee that I was on in 2017 regarding crofting legislation reform, and it never happened. And dare I say it, Minister, you might make promises what can happen in the future, but I'm not sure you're going to be here to deliver it. There may be a change of government, there may be a change of ministers. I don't want to dwell on that, but that is a fact. And I think this is a hugely important issue which warrants being given priority. Better regulation of existing common grazings could be progressed now so that we could begin to halt the trend of neglect and abandonment of some of these areas and help facilitate the joint ventures which the bill seeks to encourage and I believe crofters want to see happening. As the committee is aware, Convener, common grazings cover about 550,000 hectares of Scotland. That's about 1.3 million acres. And to put it into more parochial terms, that's about 800,000 football pitches. It's a huge amount of land. But according to the Commission's latest published figures, just under half of them are regulated with the Common Grazing Committees in office. Now, that's a lack of transparency, who's in the management and control, and to my mind contributes to the abandonment and neglect. There has been a huge frustration for many, including the owners of the land who feel helpless to intervene and those who use the common grazings who want to do more with it but are unable to do so. The lack of regulation, to my mind now, is a serious barrier, Convener, to the delivery of important outcomes for the wider public interest, such as carbon sequestration through peatland restoration, renewable energy generation and wider sustainable social and economic and environmental benefits, which are what, in my mind, crofting is all about. At very least, in my opinion, Convener, the Common Grazing Committee should have a named point of contact, information available to owners and communities about who holds shares. That's transparent. That's what the Land Reform Bill does. That's why I think we should see these. These changes would facilitate management for environmental as well as other positives used for the common grazings to reduce the current level of neglect and abandonment that I'm afraid is happening across Scotland. And it would also benefit crofting communities, generating income and potential ways to help the environment. I'm therefore going to urge the Minister and the Committee to support Amendment 199 because I believe I would take an intervention if I'm able to. Yeah.
I absolutely understand the point that the member's trying to make. I think 2 years is too soon. There's an awful lot of work that would have to be undertaken. The bill will need to bed in itself. I'm happy to, the member stated that he didn't think I was prepared to discuss it. I'm more than happy to discuss the amendment that you put forward here to work out if there's another way of doing this, so there's an extension to the time that would be required. I just don't think that 2 years is long enough to allow us to get to the position that's stated here in the member's amendment.
Convener, I thank the Minister for that intervention. I think my view would be that if you're not writing it off and you're not saying it doesn't need to be done, and we can put it into this legislation with a slightly longer flash to bang time as far as implementation is concerned, I'd probably be happy with that and withdraw it at this stage. But my real concern is, Minister, and joking apart, I want to see crofting thrive for the next generation and the generation afterwards. And that's why I find it deeply disappointing that we're putting off things we could do today, saying that we're going to do that tomorrow. So I am happy to withdraw it, but it's not going away. So I can withdraw it, convener, when the moment comes, purely on the understanding the Minister will talk to me and understand that I will be tenacious on this one and there'll be no giving way at something at stage 3. Thank you, convener.
Thank you. Minister, to wind up.
To reiterate that point, I'm more than happy to have the discussion. If we can find solutions to this without going to a vote, then I'm more than happy to do that. So I'm wind up at that. Thank you, convener.
Thank you. And the question is that Amendment 65 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are all agreed. I call Amendment 66 in the name of the Minister, already debated with Amendment 65. Minister, to move formally.
Move formally, convener.
And the question is that Amendment 66 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are all agreed. I call Amendment 67 in the name of the Minister, already debated with Amendment 65. And I remind members that if Amendment 67 is agreed to, I cannot call Amendment 193 due to preemption. Minister, to move formally.
Moved, convener.
And the question is that Amendment 67 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are all agreed. I now call Amendment 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73 and all in the name of the Minister and all previously debated with Amendment 65. And I invite the Minister to move Amendment 68 to 73 en bloc.
Moved en bloc, convener. Thank you.
Does any member have any objection to a single question being put on Amendment 68 to 73? No. The question is that Amendment 68 to 73 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? And the question is that Section 15 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are all agreed. I call Amendment 194 in the name of Rhoda Grant, already debated with Amendment 65. Rhoda Grant, to move or not move?
Not move.
That has not been moved, so will not be considered. I call Amendment 195 in the name of Rhoda Grant, already debated with Amendment 65. Rhoda Grant, to move or not move?
Not moved.
It's not moved, so will not be considered. I call Amendment 74 in the name of the Minister, already debated with Amendment 2. Minister, to move formally.
Move formally, convener.
Thank you. And the question is that Amendment 74 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are all agreed. I call Amendment 75 in the name of the Minister, already debated with Amendment 65. Minister, to move formally.
Moved, convener.
And the question is that Amendment 75 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are all agreed. The question is that Section 16 be agreed to. Are we agreed? We are all agreed. The question is that Section 17 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are all agreed. I call Amendment 141 in the name of Ariane Burgess, already debated with Amendment 65. Ariane Burgess, to move or not move?
Not moved.
That's not moved, so won't be considered. I call Amendment 142 in the name of Ariane Burgess, already debated with Amendment 167. And I remind members that if Amendment 142 is agreed to, I cannot call Amendments 143, 144 and 145 due to preemption. Ariane Burgess, to move or not move?
Moved.
And the question is that Amendment 142 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? No. We are not agreed. There will be a division. Those supporting the amendment, please raise your hands now. Those members opposed? Those members wishing to abstain? And the result of vote is 2 for, 7 against, no abstentions. The amendment therefore has not been agreed. I call Amendment 143 in the name of Tim Eagle, already debated with Amendment 167. Tim Eagle, to move or not move?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 143 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not agreed. There will be division. Those supporting the amendment, please raise your hand now. Those members opposed? Those members wishing to abstain? And the result of the vote is 7 for, 2 against. The amendment has therefore been agreed. I call Amendment 144 in the name of Tim Eagle, already debated with Amendment 167. Tim Eagle, to move or not move?
Moved.
And the question is that Amendment 144 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are not agreed. There will be a division. Those supporting the amendment, please raise your hand now. Those members wishing to object? Those members abstaining? And the result of the vote is 7 for, 2 against. The amendment has therefore been agreed. I call Amendment 145 in the name of Tim Eagle, already debated with Amendment 167. Tim Eagle to move or not move? The question is Amendment 145 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not agreed. There will be a division. Those supporting the amendment, please raise your hands now. Those members opposed? Members wishing to abstain? And the result of the vote is 7 for, 2 against. The amendment has therefore been agreed. I call Amendment 146 in the name of Ariane Burgess, already debated with Amendment 167. Ariane Burgess to move or not move?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 146 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? No. We are not agreed. There will be division. Those supporting the amendment, please raise your hand now. Those members opposed? Those members wishing to abstain? And the result of the vote is 2 for, 7 against. The amendment has therefore not been agreed. I call Amendment 147 in the name of Tim Eagle, already debated with Amendment 167. Tim Eagle to move or not move? Moved. The question is that Amendment 147 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are not agreed. There will be division. Those supporting the amendment, please raise your hands now. Those members opposed? Those members wishing to abstain? And the result of the vote is 7 for, 2 against. The amendment has therefore not been agreed. I call Amendment 148 in the name of Ariane Burgess, already debated with Amendment 167. Ariane Burgess to move or not move?
It was agreed. It was agreed.
Oh, I beg your pardon. I read out the wrong result there. The result vote was 7 for, 2 against. The amendment was there agreed. Thank you, Minister. I call Amendment 148 in the name of Ariane Burgess, already debated with Amendment 167. Ariane Burgess to move or not move?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 148 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not agreed. There will be a division. Those supporting the amendment, please raise your hands now. Those members opposed? Those members wishing to abstain? And the result of the vote is 2 for, 7 against. The amendment has therefore not been agreed. I call Amendment 196 in the name of Ariane Burgess, already debated with Amendment 167. Ariane Burgess to move or not move?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 196 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not agreed. There will be a division. Those supporting the amendment, please raise your hands now. Those members wishing to object? Those members wishing to abstain? And the result of the vote is 2 for, 7 against. The amendment has therefore not been agreed. I call Amendment 76 the name of the Minister, already debated with Amendment 167. Minister to move formally.
Convener.
The question is that Amendment 76 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are all agreed. I call Amendment 77 in the name of the Minister, already debated with Amendment 167. Ministers move formally.
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 77 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not agreed. There will be division. Those supporting the amendment, please raise your hands now. Those members against? Those members wishing to abstain? And the result of the vote is 6 for, 2 against, 1 abstention. The amendment has therefore been agreed. I call Amendment 197 in the name of Rhoda Grant, already debated with Amendment 167. Rhoda Grant to move or not move?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 197 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are all agreed. I call Amendment 149 in the name of Tim Eagle, already debated with Amendment 167. Tim Eagle to move or not move? Moved. The question is that Amendment 149 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are not agreed. There will be a division. Those supporting the amendment, please raise your hands now. Those members wishing to object? Those members wishing to abstain? And the result of the vote is 7 for, 2 against. The amendment has therefore been agreed. I call Amendment 150 in the name of Tim Eagle, already debated with Amendment 167. Tim Eagle to move or not move? Moved. The question is Amendment 150 agreed to? Are we all agreed? Yes. We are not agreed. There will be a division. Those supporting the amendment, please raise your hands now. Those members wishing to oppose? Those wishing to abstain? And the result of the vote is 7 for, 2 against. The amendment has therefore been agreed. I call Amendment 151 in the name of Ariane Burgess, already debated with Amendment 167. Ariane Burgess to move or not move?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 151 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not agreed. There will be division. Those supporting the amendment, please raise your hands now. Those members wishing to oppose? Those members abstaining? And the result of the vote is 2 for, 7 against. The amendment has therefore not been agreed. I call Amendment 152 in the name of Ariane Burgess, already debated with Amendment 167. Ariane Burgess, to move or not move?
Moved.
And the question is that Amendment 152 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not agreed. There will be a division. Those supporting the amendment, please raise your hand now. Those members opposed? Those members wishing to abstain? We'll run that again. Those members wishing to agree with the amendment, raise their hands now. Those members opposed? Those members wishing to abstain? And the result of the vote is 3 for, 6 against. The amendment has therefore not been agreed. I call on Amendment 153 in the name of Tim Eagle, already debated with Amendment 167. Tim Eagle, to move or not move?
198.
Back to, I call Amendment 198 in the name of Ariane Burgess, already debated with Amendment 167. Ariane Burgess, to move or not move?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 198 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not agreed. There will be division. Those supporting the amendment, please raise your hands now. Those members opposed? Those members wishing to abstain? And the result of the vote is 3 for, 6 against. The amendment has therefore not been agreed. I call Amendment 153 in the name of Tim Eagle, already debated with Amendment 167. Tim Eagle, to move or not move?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 153 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. Are we all agreed? We are not agreed. Those supporting the amendment, please raise your hands now. Those members opposed? Those members wishing to abstain? And the result of the vote is 7 for, 1 against, 1 abstention. The amendment has therefore been agreed. The question is that Section 18 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are all agreed. I call Amendment 199 in the name of Edward Mountain, already debated with Amendment 65. Edward Mountain, to move or not move?
Sorry, moved.
The question is that Amendment 199 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not agreed. There will be a division. Those supporting the amendment, please raise your hand now. Those members opposed? Those members wishing to abstain? And the result of the vote is 4 for, 5 against. The amendment has therefore not been agreed. The question is that Section 19 be agreed. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are all agreed. I call Amendment 78 in the name of the Minister, already debated with Amendment 171. Minister, to move formally. Thank you. And the question is that Amendment 78 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are all agreed. I now call Amendment 154 in the name of Ariane Burgess, grouped with Amendments 200 and 201. Ariane Burgess, to move Amendment 154 and speak to all amendments in the group.
Thanks, Convener. I move Amendment 154. One of the missed opportunities with this crofting bill is that it doesn't expand the crofting model to other parts of Scotland. And we all know that crofting is a cultural institution, a unique way of life in the crofting counties that must be preserved. We can all agree that it's something that also binds communities together, supports the rural community, gives more people a stake in the land, and by its very nature is a low-impact way of managing the land. And I firmly believe this makes crofting a good model for reinvigorating communities and halting depopulation in our rural parts of Scotland. Furthermore, it makes crofting an ideal method by which to produce locally accessible food in a sustainable, regenerative way, a path we legislated for in the Agriculture and Rural Communities and the Good Food Nation Act. Amendment 154, which was prepared in collaboration with the Scottish Crofting Federation, requires ministers to both commit to and report on creating new crofts on public land. This would both be within existing crofting counties and beyond them. It would help put Scotland on track to meet its climate, nature and community wealth building goals, whilst also allowing more new entrants to get involved. Amendment 102 offers another path for public land to be moved into crofting, one that could work in tandem with Amendment 154. It would give ministers a duty to consider putting public land up for crofting if a community body requests it. This would be useful as it would allow local communities that sit close to public land to tackle issues like a lack of available crofts in their vicinity. Amendment 200 is similar, although it allows any person to request a crofting designation for land outside the established crofting communities. Ministers would be able to amend this stipulation if necessary. It's really important that we listen to the calls to expand crofting to the rest of Scotland, and I would urge members to vote for these amendments so we can take that vital step. I will, however, listen to what the Minister has to say.
Minister.
Thank you, Convener. So, although I support Ariane Burgess's desire to see new crofts being created, I can't support these amendments 154, 200 and 201. New crofts are a means to provide opportunities for new entrants to crofters. So let me preface my remarks with some comments about the actions that are being taken to free up existing crofts. Each year the Commission reports to me or the Minister the numbers of new entrants into crofting, and on average that figure has been around 500. From October 2023 to September 2024, there were 543 new entrants into crofting. The Commission already reports each year on the number of crofters who have self-reported through their annual notice that they are in breach of one or more of their duties. In 24 and 25, that number was exactly 1,000, and we know that the true figure is significantly higher when you consider that approximately 25% of crofters did not return their annual notice. However, I am pleased to say that the Commission has now taken decisive action to encourage the return of the annual notice and to take action on more of those that are in breach of their duty. This is the work that the Commission needs to focus on just now, and I am delighted to say that they are currently letting one croft per week to a new entrant due to the increased focus on duties and enforcement. Amendment 154 would place a very short period of time from Royal Assent to prepare and publish 2 reports. It is important that we let this new bill bed in and take effect, and together with the excellent work of the Commission that is currently happening, we will have a much better idea of what new crofts may be needed and where. In regard to expanding crofting out with the crofting counties, I think this is a topic that needs much more serious thought. We need to consider whether there may be practical and unintended consequences from simply allowing crofts to be created anywhere in Scotland. And I would want to seek the views of the crofting public before making any firm decision. So therefore I can't support Amendment 200. Happy to.
I think expanding the practice of crofting across Scotland into other counties has been something that's been talked about for quite a long time now. Can the Minister give any assurances on what work might be done on that in that area? Because it would be nice to get to a point where we're not just talking about it, but we're actually doing some work on the ground.
Well, I'd have to say that there's talk about it, but there's no consensus as to whether it should be the right thing to do or not. So I think there needs to be a much greater piece of work done on deciding whether or not to expand beyond the crofting counties. If we remember why crofting was established in the first place, there was a particular area of land that required that kind of intervention. And I think we've all agreed in the committee, every evidence session, more work needs to be done on crofting as a whole. And the expansion of whether we're going to have croft land in other parts of Scotland should be decided in that process. So I would very much push back on this particular aspect of it until such time as we've got clarity as to whether or not it's actually the right thing to do in other parts of Scotland.
Another intervention on that point. I think I'm seeking clarity on how you're going to get clarity, and if that's a sense that that's something. Of course, we can't predict what's going to happen after this election, but is it something that is kind of queued up as a piece of work to actually take on board?
In my earlier point to Edward Mountain, every party is going to have their manifestos about what they're putting forward, and we are coming up to an election. But I think it's been made very clear to me that we absolutely require further work to be done on crofting legislation. We need to go much further and be much bolder, and I absolutely accept that. And I can't say what would be in the SNP's manifesto at this stage, but it's very much in my mind that this is a bedrock to start with, but we need to go much further in the future.
Okay. Thank you, Minister.
Okay. As far as Amendment 241, I'm not sure how that would be used. It would allow a community body to require a Scottish Minister to consider designating some area of public land as a croft irrespective of which public authority owned that land and irrespective of whether a community body itself is situated near the land. Furthermore, the Scottish Government Community Land Team is currently undertaking a separate review of all the community rights to buy, and as such, how groups could access the right to purchase such land is likely to change. So I'd ask the member, I'd absolutely take on, I reiterate what I said, I absolutely take on board the sentiment behind what she's trying to do, but I'd ask her not to press these amendments. I believe there is work coming down the line, but if she does press them, I'd ask the committee to reject them.
Thank you, Minister. Ariane Burgess to wind up or press or withdraw Amendment 154.
In winding up, Convener, I appreciate what the Minister has been said about the commitments around further work, but I think I'm minded to press Amendment 154. Yeah.
Thank you. The question is that Amendment 154 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not agreed. There will be division. Those supporting the amendment, please raise your hands now. Those members opposed? Those members wishing to abstain? And the result of the vote is 2 for, 7 against. The amendment has therefore not been agreed. I call Amendment 200 in the name of Ariane Burgess, already debated with Amendment 154. Ariane Burgess to move or not move?
Not moved.
That has not been moved, so will not be considered. I call Amendment 201 in the name of Ariane Burgess, already debated with Amendment 154. Ariane Burgess to move or not move?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 201 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not agreed. There will be a division. Those supporting the amendment, please raise your hands now. Those members wishing to oppose? Those members wishing to abstain? And the result of the vote is 2 for, 7 against. And the amendment has therefore not been agreed. I call Amendment 202 in the name of Rhoda Grant, already debated with Amendment 167. Rhoda Grant to move or not move?
Not moved.
It's not moved, so will not be considered. I call Amendment 203 in the name of Rhoda Grant, already debated with Amendment 167. Rhoda Grant to move or not move?
Not moved.
That has not been moved, so will not be considered. I call Amendment 79 in the name of the Minister, already debated with Amendment 171. Minister to move formally.
Moved, Convener.
The question is that Amendment 79 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are all agreed. And the question is that Section 21 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are agreed. I call Amendment 80, 81 and 82, all in the name of the Minister and all previously debated with Amendment 42, and invite the Minister to move Amendments 80 to 82 en bloc.
Moved en bloc, Convener.
Does any member object to a single question being put on Amendments 80 to 82? No. The question is that Amendments 80 to 82 are agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are agreed. And the question is that Section 22 be agreed to. Are we agreed? We are agreed. I call Amendments 83, 84 and 85, all in the name of the Minister and all previously debated with Amendments 42, and invite the Minister to move Amendments 83 to 85 en bloc.
Moved en bloc, Convener.
Does any member object to a single question being put on Amendments 83 to 85? No. So the question is that Amendments 83 to 85 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are all agreed. The question is that Section 23 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are all agreed. I call Amendment 204 in the name of Edward Mountain, already debated with Amendment 42. And I remind members that if Amendment 204 is agreed to, I cannot call Amendment 86 due to preemption. Tim Eagle to move or not move? That has not been moved, so will not be considered. I call Amendment 86 in the name of Beatrice Wishart, already debated with Amendment 42. Beatrice Wishart to move or not move?
Move.
The question is that Amendment 86 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are all agreed. I call Amendment 205 in the name of Edward Mountain, already debated with Amendment 42. Tim Eagle to move or not move? Not moved. It's not moved, so will not be considered. I call Amendment 206 in the name of Edward Mountain, already debated with Amendment 42. Tim Eagle to move or not move?
Not moved.
That's not been moved, so won't be considered. I can call Amendment 207 in the name of Edward Mountain, already debated with Amendment 42. Tim Eagle to move or not move?
Not moved.
That has not been moved, so will not be considered. I call Amendment 208 in the name of Edward Mountain, already debated with Amendment 42. Tim Eagle to move or not move?
Not moved.
Not moved, so it will not be considered. I call Amendment 209 in the name of Edward Mountain, already debated with Amendment 42. Tim Eagle to move or not move?
Not moved.
Not moved, so that will not be considered. The question is that Section 24 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are all agreed. The question is that section 25 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are all agreed. I call amendments 87, 88 and 89, all in the name of the Minister and all previously debated with Amendment 42, and invite the Minister to move amendments 87 to 89 en bloc.
Moved en bloc, Convener.
Does any member object to a single question being put to amendments 87 to 89? So the question is that amendments 87 to 89 are agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are all agreed. The question is that section 26 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are all agreed. The question is that section 27 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are all agreed. I call amendments 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99 and 90. All in the name of the Minister and all previously debated with Amendment 42. Invite the Minister to move amendments 91 to 99 and 90 en bloc.
Moved en bloc, Convener.
Thank you. Does any member object to a single question being put on amendments 91 to 99 and 90? So the question is that amendments 91 to 99 and 90 are agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are all agreed. The question is that section 28 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are all agreed. I call Amendment 100 in the name of the Minister, already debated with Amendment 2. Minister, to move formally.
Moved, Convener.
And the question is that Amendment 100 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are all agreed. I call Amendment 101 in the name of the Minister, already debated with Amendment 2. Minister, to move formally.
Moved, Convener.
And the question is that Amendment 101 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are all agreed. The question is that Section 29 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are all agreed. I call Amendment 155 in the name of Tim Eagle, already debated with Amendment 1. Tim Eagle, to move or not move?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 155 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are all agreed. The question is that Section 30 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are agreed. The question is that Section 31 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are all agreed. Call Amendment 210 in the name of Edward Mountain, already debated with Amendment 171. Edward Mountain to move, I beg your pardon, Tim Eagle to move or not move?
Not moved.
The question, that's not been moved, so will not be considered. The question is that Section 32 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are all agreed. The question is that Section 33 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are all agreed. I call Amendment 211 in the name of Tim Eagle, group with Amendments 212, 213 and 215. Tim Eagle to move Amendment 211 and speak to all amendments in the group.
Thank you very much, Convener. I just want to start with just saying how I think it's important to put on record actually just how important crofting is to the Highlands and Islands, and I know that through the many contacts that I have had over the last couple of years. I haven't put a lot of amendments into this bill purely because it's quite technical, and I know that there's quite a lot of agreement with most of it. But the key part for me that came out from stage one through to now is that actually, and goes back to a little bit of what Edward Mountain was saying earlier on, that back in 2017 when there was a crofting review done in this Parliament, that I think the crofters overall thought there was going to be more and a bit of a consolidation of previous legislation. And that's where what I'm going to speak about now with my Amendment 211. Amendment 211 would require ministers to undertake a review of all crofting legislation 2 years after the bill gains royal assent. The review would need to consider the impact and effectiveness of existing legislation. It would also question whether further legislation on crofting is required and whether any legislation should be consolidated. The amendment requires that following this review, ministers would need to produce a report and lay it before Parliament. This reflects the recognition by the committee in their report that there was broad support for a more fundamental and structural review of crofting policy and law in Scotland. It recognises that crofting has been protected by legislation since the 19th century, and we must ensure that legislation is not overly complex, scattered across various pieces of legislation and up to date, representing crofting traditions amongst a modern Scotland. Turning to other amendments in the group, Ariane Burgess' Amendment 212 I am happy to support, as its aims are broadly similar to mine. However, I would prefer my own amendment, as it addresses concerns over whether existing legislation needs consolidation and whether there needs to be more legislation, whereas Ariane's looks specifically at the need for further legislation. I believe we need to avoid legislating on top of legislation, creating legal complexities and a lack of clarity within the law before consolidation, and perhaps further repealing that which is no longer necessary. Added to which, my amendment will require a review of this bill if it becomes an act. We heard at stage 1 that this bill, whilst welcome and does make positive changes, is not the significant update to crofting law that is wanted, needed or perhaps even promised. The Scottish Government have said this bill would pave the way for future legislation, and this amendment would see its effectiveness being reviewed amongst a full review of all existing legislation. Finally, Ariane's amendment states that the review must be within 5 years of the bill receiving royal assent, while I prefer the speedy 2-year requirement in my amendment because I believe we need more robust change and consideration as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Mr. Eagle. Could you move Amendment 211?
Yes, I move Amendment 211.
Thank you. Ariane Burgess to speak to Amendment 212 and other amendments in the group.
Thanks, Convener. As I said during the Stage 1 debate of this bill, I consider it to be something of a missed opportunity. It's been in the works for a decade, and while it's tidying up crofting legislation, it's not quite what crofters had hoped for. There are a number of key asks from crofters that haven't been addressed in this first draft of the bill. For example, tighter regulation around the market and tenancies so that crofting can be more accessible, a scheme to create crofts on public land, and a Scotland-wide expansion of where crofting can take place, all of which I've attempted to address with several of my amendments. I agree with the Scottish Crofting Federation that work on more comprehensive reform must start immediately after the upcoming election. The Minister can make guarantees about it today, but given none of us know for sure if we'll be here come May, let alone who will be in government, I think it's vital that we get a commitment to further action codified in this legislation. Amendment 213 and its consequential 215 would bind ministers in the next Parliament to introduce another crofting bill. Amendment 212 would give ministers a duty to review existing crofting legislation within the next 5 years, and this process would make them consider whether they think further legislation is required, set out the reasons why, and then consult with stakeholders. I've listened carefully to what Tim Eagle has said, and I actually appreciate his point about getting that process underway faster, so I would be minded to support his amendment in the first instance, and if it falls, I'll move mine. Thank you, Convener.
Minister.
Okay, thank you, Convener. I'm unable to support the amendments 211, Tim Eagle's amendment 211 and Ariane Burgess' 212, 213 and 215. And I'm not saying that because we don't want further committed future crofting reform, because we absolutely do. As I said in my evidence session to the committee, future reform is absolutely necessary. But I would urge caution about rushing into reform in the next 5 years, as suggested by Ariane Burgess' amendment. We first have to establish is what should crofting policy be in the future. And, similar to the approach we have taken in this bill, we need stakeholders to consider what that policy is. Although it's ultimately responsible to government to set the policy, that should never be done in isolation, and it should only ever be based on good evidence, and that comes from discussions with stakeholders and those involved in the sector, and that takes time. The last 4 years' worth of discussion preparing this bill have been very informative. It has led us to produce a bill that has wide stakeholder input and buy-in, but these discussions have also told us there are a wide range of views out there. Yes.
So, I mean, I don't know what you're going to go on to say there, and I wonder if this is something that I actually agree with Ariane Burgess' last point there. If we don't put something in the legislation now, we don't know what's going to happen post May, and therefore I think we need something in this bill that reflects what I think, unless I'm mistaken, what was a pretty consistent view in our early stage 1 investigations that pretty much said actually people thought this was going to be more than it was. So, I mean, is there potential to take this off the table, to have a discussion prior to stage 3, and maybe we can do something between both mine and Ariane Burgess' amendment that the government is also comfortable with, that just gives that reassurance that I think people were looking for at stage 1?
That's entirely... yes, I'm more than happy to do that. I don't need to say any more than the rest of my notes. I absolutely take on board. I think we're agreed around the table and across party that we need to have further reform. So if Ariane Burgess and Tim Eagle are prepared to take this off the table just now, we'll have a discussion ahead of stage 3 and work out what it is that we think that should look like going forward. Happy to.
Yeah, I mean, just appreciate Tim Eagle's intervention on that point and the Minister's response there. I do think we need to recognise that, given we've been busy with looking at crofting for a long time, 10 years, the Minister used the word rushing, but, and I know it's a complex situation, but I do think we need to get that commitment and that surety so that the crofting community really understand that they're being genuinely supported and it's not something that's going to get sidelined in the next session.
Yeah, I completely understand that. But the one thing I have taken out of my own interaction with the crofting community is there are a very broad range of diverse views on what it is that what people actually want out of crofting. And I think we have to give that real consideration. And at this point, I'm going to point out that the work that our team have done has been phenomenal in getting us to the stage that we currently are. And yet, we're still talking about a bill that doesn't go nearly far enough. So, more than happy to take this before stage 3, have those discussions before stage 3, if the members don't press them, and then let's have a look and see what it is that we need to do for the next session.
Rhoda Grant.
Just a short intervention, just to agree with a lot of what's been said. People were expecting a substantive bill in the last Parliament. They've got a bill that does not really meet aspirations in this Parliament, although it's welcome for the changes it makes. I think we have to find a way of binding the next government, whoever they are, to consult widely and bring forward legislation while recognising crofting has evolved in different areas. That won't be easy, but we really need legislation because what's happening to crofting just now, it won't survive if it's not amended substantially in the next 5 years.
Thank you.
Absolutely take the points on board. Happy to include Rhoda Grant and any other member that wants to have a discussion about what it is we need to do going forward.
Thank you, Minister. Tim Eagle, to wind up and press or withdraw Amendment 211.
I think we've just covered it in that chat, so I'm not going to press 211.
Thank you. The member has indicated they wish to withdraw the amendment. Does any member have an objection? No. That has been withdrawn, so will not be considered. I call Amendment 212 in the name of Ariane Burgess, already debated with Amendment 211. Ariane Burgess, to move or not move?
Not moved.
That's not been moved, so will not be considered. I call Amendment 213 in the name of Ariane Burgess, already debated with Amendment 211. Ariane Burgess, to move or not move?
Not moved.
That has not been moved, so will not be considered. And the question is that sections 34 and 35 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. Thank you. We are all agreed. At this point in proceedings, we're about to move on to Schedule 1, and I think it's appropriate moment to conclude proceedings for today. And Stage 2 proceedings will be considered at our next meeting next week. So I now close this meeting.